Chapter 420. Although Su Mansion was a mansion in name, it occupied a corner of the entire city. However, in reality, it occupied a corner of profound Battle City. The courtyard was so large that at a glance, one could see tens of millions of palaces. Su family was one of the largest families in Xiandou Nation. They had hundreds of thousands of disciples. Chu Fengmian's group followed Su Jin and entered the Su family. They came to a palace, and a middle-aged man was sitting in the palace. This middle-aged man appeared to be in his early 30s. His face was dignified and aloof. He was a peak saint. However, Chu Fengmian could sense that this person's strength was not inferior to that of flower-seizing venerable. Although he was a peak saint, he was still accumulating strength. He could step into life and death realm at any time. His strength was not inferior to ordinary life and death realm martial artists. Father. Su Jin looked at the middle-aged man and spoke. His words revealed the middle-aged man's identity. He was Su Jin's father, the current Su family's family head. I heard that you were intercepted by the Earth Demon sect. That flower-seizing venerable actually dared to intercept you. If he doesn't die, this old man will go to the Earth Demon sect and demand justice for you. The Su family's family head coldly snorted. His tone was filled with anger. Although their Su family's strength was far inferior to the Earth Demon sect, they weren't easy to bully. You three saved my daughter. Speak, what benefits do you want? As long as it's not too excessive, our Su family will satisfy you. The Su family's family head turned around and sized up Chu Fengmian's group. His tone was filled with disdain. Since Chu Fengmian had returned with Su Jin, he must have come to ask for benefit. Although their Su family couldn't be considered as a large family, they still had some foundation. Therefore, they planned to give Chu Fengmian some benefits and send him away. There's no need for benefits. However, young lady Su has promised us that if you give us the North Sea Academy's examination qualifications, we'll leave immediately. Chu Fengmian calmly said. He didn't feel like arguing with Su Jin. After all, he had come for the examination qualifications. As long as they obtained the North Sea Academy's examination qualifications, Chu Fengmian's group could leave immediately. North Sea Academy's examination qualifications? When the Su family's family head heard Chu Fengmian's words, he couldn't help but frown. Su Jin interrupted from the side. Father, these people saved my life and are my benefactors. If I don't receive them, it would be impolite. We've come all the way here, so we should at least hold a banquet to welcome us. After Su Jin finished speaking, he turned his head and said to Chu Fengmian, Young Master Chu, you can stay in my house for now. Since my daughter has agreed to the matter of the Northern Mang Academy's examination qualification, there is no need to rush. Wait until the evening and we will hold a banquet to welcome everyone. Huarui, bring these three guests to their accommodations. Su Jin said to a butler standing beside him. The housekeeper, Huarui, left with Chu Fengmian. It was only after Chu Fengmian and the others had left that the Su family head revealed a look of suspicion as he looked at Su Jin. Jin, we've already distributed the qualifications for the Northern Mang Academy's examination this time around and selected the disciples. How could you agree to that? Furthermore, those people appeared to possess mediocre strength. They are simply not worth roping in. Even if they saved you, you should just give them some benefits and send them away, said the Su family head. With a single glance, he was able to determine the cultivation levels of Chu Fengmian and the others. They weren't even peak saints. Although they were only at the 7th level of the divine power realm, there were still a large number of them in the Su family. They were simply not worth roping in. One must know that the qualifications for the Northern Mang Academy's examination were enough to rope in a peak saint expert. The value of the qualifications was not low. Father, did you really think that I would hand over the qualifications for the Northern Mang Academy's examination to them? A cold smile appeared on Su Jin's face. I merely schemed against them and lured them over so that I could seize the Sumeru space in their hands. Her voice had regained its previous gloominess. Every word she spoke was filled with scheming and vicious. I don't know what kind of luck those three possessed. They actually managed to kill the flower-seizing Exalted and took away the Sumeru space in his hands. What? Sumeru space? The Su family head's expression changed abruptly when he heard about the Sumeru space. Isn't that the supreme treasure of the Earth Demon sect? It is said that it is safeguarded by old ancestor Duotion. How did it end up in the hands of the flower-seizing Exalted? Furthermore, it actually ended up in the hands of those three people. Then what are we waiting for? Let's quickly snatch the Sumeru space. If our Su family is able to obtain a treasure like the Sumeru space and offer it to the Northern Mang Academy, we will likely receive endless benefits. The Su family head's expression became incomparably greedy. A treasure like the Sumeru space was something that everyone wanted to obtain. Even if they obtained the Sumeru space, it would be useless to them. If they offered it to the Northern Mang Academy, they would be able to exchange it for an endless amount of treasures to support the growth of their Su family. It's not that simple. Although those three people's cultivation levels are not high, that woman is extremely powerful. I have fought against her before. I was undoubtedly defeated in a single strike. Su Jin slowly spoke. If we try to snatch it, I'm afraid that both sides will suffer. That woman's strength is actually sufficient to defeat you in a single strike? She is at the 7th level of the divine power stage. With your strength, you can even defeat a peak saint. How is it possible for someone to defeat you in a single strike? The Su family head was shocked when he heard Su Jin's words. He was naturally aware of Su Jin's strength. It was indeed somewhat inconceivable that Han Yueli could defeat Su Jin in a single strike. Moreover, those people possess a large amount of wealth. I personally witnessed that man taking out 10 billion 9 cauldron pills. The wealth that he possesses should be far greater than that. I suspect that he might have obtained some sort of great fortuitous encounter or some sort of ancient treasure. That is why he possesses such wealth. Su Jin slowly spoke. Right now, it is not good for us to directly become enemies with them. We can first probe them. Father, you can go and invite the people from the other two great families in Profound War City to the banquet tonight. We can borrow their strength to probe them. If those people do not possess the strength, we can just kill them directly. If they possess the strength and possess extremely high talent, we can also use this opportunity to rope them in. Su Jin spoke. Her scheme was flawless. In her scheme, everything was going according to her wishes. All right, we'll do as you say. The Su family head's eyes flickered. After he spoke, his figure disappeared. Chapter 421. The conversation between Su Jin and the Su family's family head took place in a palace filled with restrictions. However, how could such a small restriction possibly escape Chu Fengmian's ears? Everything was heard by Chu Fengmian clearly. Sure enough, this Su Jin's objective isn't that simple. She's not planning to give us the Beimang Academy's examination qualifications? Chu Fengmian sneered repeatedly. It was not up to them to decide whether or not they wanted to give them the examination qualifications. Since they had invited Chu Fengmian over, it was easier to invite the devil than to send him away. Naturally, Chu Fengmian would only leave after obtaining his objective. Chu Fengmian, this Su Jin doesn't seem to have any good intentions. From the looks of it, she doesn't plan to give us the Beimang Academy's examination qualifications. Han Yueli secretly sent a voice transmission to Chu Fengmian from the side. It's fine. I already knew that this Su Jin wouldn't obediently hand over the Beimang Academy's examination qualifications. However, since we've come, we naturally can't return empty-handed. Chu Fengmian replied with a smile. His tone was incomparably calm. Wanting to scheme against Chu Fengmian? He would have to see exactly who was scheming against who. Young Master Chu, this is our Su family's best guest room. Everyone, please rest for a bit. Our family head will prepare a banquet in the evening. I will invite you to the banquet, the housekeeper Huarui said as he brought Chu Fengmian and the others to a palace. This housekeeper Huarui's strength was extremely high. He was at the 5th level of the divine power realm. In some small countries, he could be considered an overlord. However, in the Su family, he was only a key character. However, he was also an extremely high-level housekeeper. Huarui said calmly, "Everyone, if there's anything you need, please do not hesitate to tell us. Everyone is young Miss Jin's honored guest. This Chu really does have some things that I need. I will have to trouble housekeeper Huarui." At the moment when Huarui was planning to leave, Chu Fengmian suddenly spoke. This caused Huarui's face to twitch slightly. His eyes were filled with disdain. Sure enough, he was a country bumpkin from a remote place. He actually wanted to take advantage of others. Chu Fengmian and the others came from a remote country. In Huarui's opinion, they were simply people from a remote place. Thus, he felt disdain toward them. He was merely being courteous earlier. However, Chu Fengmian didn't seem to care at all, and directly spoke. This caused him to feel even more disdain. However, Huarui's expression was extremely calm. He turned around and spoke to Chu Fengmian. "May I know what young Master Chu needs? I need a batch of Saint's Blood Essence or Demon God's Blood Essence. I wonder if Steward Huarui can help me buy some?" Chu Fengmian said calmly. "Of course, Butler Huarui doesn't have to pay for it. I'll pay for it myself." As Chu Fengmian spoke, he waved his hand, and a total of 20 billion 9 cauldron pills flew out. The 20 billion 9 cauldron pills turned into a long river of elixirs. Huarui's expression was filled with disdain and impatience. But when he saw the 20 billion 9 cauldron pills, his eyeballs almost fell out. This was not just 200 million but 2 billion. It was a total of 20 billion 9 cauldron pills. Although their Su family was capable of taking out 20 billion 9 cauldron pills, it was impossible for them to take out 20 billion 9 cauldron pills with a wave of their hand. Judging from Chu Fengmian's appearance, it seemed to be extremely easy. For example, as the Su family's steward, he might not even be able to obtain 100 million 9 cauldron pills in a single year. 200 billion 9 cauldron pills was equivalent to 200 years of accumulation. Not even the Su family's family head dared to take out so much wealth at once. Where did these country bumpkins get so much wealth from? Huarui's face twitched slightly. But he quickly returned to normal. Our Su family has many business partners in Profound Battle City. You can do business with our Su family directly. Furthermore, we can give you all a discounted price. Huarui extended his hand and grabbed the 20 billion 9 cauldron pills. Then, he turned around and prepared to leave. "I will come again to invite you all to the banquet. I'll give you all the Saint's Blood Essence at that time." After saying those words, Huarui turned around and left. Only Chu Fengmian and the other two were left in the room. "Young master, I don't think the Su family has any good intentions. I'm afraid that we'll encounter danger if we stay here," Tuoba Ding said inwardly from the side. "A qualification to enter the Northern Sea Academy is extremely valuable. I'm afraid that the Su family won't hand it over so easily." Tuoba Ding was naturally able to tell the Su family's attitude. "I'm afraid that there will be danger at the banquet tonight. The Su family definitely doesn't have any good intentions for holding such a banquet with such great fanfare." "That's not a problem. I'm already well aware of the Su family's schemes. Since they want to scheme against me, I can use this opportunity to scheme against them too," Chu Fengmian said with a smile. His tone was extremely relaxed. "Right now, I'm only a step away from mastering my slaughtering sword technique. It just so happens that I need a large amount of Saint's Blood Essence. Once I successfully master it, I'll be able to exterminate this tiny Su family with a wave of my hand. Since we're already here, let's take things as they come. Have a good rest first." We'll go to the banquet tonight to take a look. After Chu Fengmian finished speaking, he sat on the ground and began to rest. He spread out his spiritual consciousness and saw that the steward, Hua Rui, did not go to purchase the saint's blood essence. Instead, he went to the palace to report. What? You're saying that those 3 people gave you 20 billion 9 cauldron pills to purchase the saint's blood essence? After the Su family's family head heard Huarui's words, he was shocked. 20 billion 9 cauldron pills was not a small amount. Chu Fengmian had plundered half of the Qin Empire's wealth. That was why he was able to take out such an enormous amount with a wave of his hand. Although the Su family was enormous, their expenses were also enormous. The Su family had always been unable to make ends meet with the expenses of hundreds of thousands of disciples. Thus, the Su family's family head was unable to take out 20 billion 9 cauldron pills himself. How could the Su family's family head not be shocked? Greed filled his eyes. He wished that he could directly snatch away the 20 billion 9 cauldron pills. I've seen the wealth of the grand competition before. However, I never expected that he would be able to take out 20 billion 9 cauldron pills in one go. It would appear that this person's wealth is much greater than I imagined. Su Jin said in a deep voice. Right now they need the saint's blood essence. They should be using it to increase their cultivation. It just so happens that our Su family is fighting against the outside world. We have a batch of saint's blood essence and demonic god's blood essence. We can sell it to them. But, Jin didn't you say that that woman's strength is extremely powerful? If they obtain the saint's blood essence, their strength will increase to another level. At that time, it will be even more difficult for us to deal with them. The Su family's family head said with a frown. Chapter 422. This batch of saint blood essence can be given to them. Isn't old ancestor refining a heaven-grade spirit artifact? It just so happens that he's lacking some pills. These 20 billion 9 cauldron pills can be sent over. Su Jin spoke frankly with assurance. Moreover, this batch of saint blood essence won't increase their strength in their hands. Isn't our Su family's most proficient cultivation method the blood refining art? Su Jin's face revealed a sinister expression. We can fuse this batch of saint blood essence with the demonic blood condensed by our Su family. This way, even if they refined the saint blood essence, the demonic blood would fuse with their bloodline. We can use this opportunity to control them. These 3 are quite strong. Let them become our Su family's slaves and serve us. That's not bad. If we fuse the demonic blood with the saint blood essence, martial artists under life and death realm won't be able to see through it. The Su family patriarch sneered. He glanced at Huarui and said, Huarui, go take out the saint blood essence worth 20 billion 9 cauldron pills from the warehouse and give it to them. This batch of saint blood essence has already been fused with the demonic blood. It was originally prepared for our Su family disciples. Go find a batch and give it to them. Yes. Huarui nodded his head and walked out of the room. At the same time, Tuobading was already resting in the room next door. As for Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli, they laid down layers of restrictions and sat facing each other. Strands of battle dragon bloodline were drawn out by Chu Fengmian and into Han Yueli's body. The profound cold energy in Han Yueli's body hadn't been completely drawn out yet. Chu Fengmian was slowly drawing it out bit by bit. If too much was drawn out in one breath, Han Yueli might not be able to control it. He had to do it step by step. After defeating Flower seizing Venerable by himself, Han Yueli's control over the profound cold energy had improved. Now he could draw out even more profound cold energy. Having an innate divine body in itself meant that Han Yueli possessed a huge treasure trove. She didn't need to cultivate. Just drawing out the energy in her body and controlling it would be enough for her to reach life and death realm. The North Mang Academy wasn't like Wuxing Country or Qin Emperor Country, where geniuses gathered. If they didn't increase their strength, there would be countless people who could trample them to death. If they didn't increase their strength, they would be slaughtered. Battle Dragon Bloodline. Merge. Drawl in Chu Fengmian's body, the power of the ancient Battle Dragon bloodline was fully unleashed and poured into Han Yueli's body. To Fengmian venerable bloodline. The profound cold power in Han Yueli's body was still far from being drawn out to the limit by Chu Fengmian. Under the stimulation of Chu Fengmian's ancient Battle Dragon bloodline, more profound cold energy was awakened. Waves of cold air emerged from the two of them. If an ordinary saint dared to enter the room rashly, he would be frozen to death by the cold air. Profound cold energy. Drawl boom. In Han Yueli's body, another large amount of profound cold force was awakened, causing her strength to rise steadily. Right now, with a single step, she had reached the 9th level of the Divine Power Realm. This was far from the limit of Han Yueli's strength. However, Chu Fengmian forcibly suppressed the rest of the profound cold energy, not allowing Han Yueli to break through again. Once she reached the peak of Divine Power Realm, she would draw a life and death calamity at any time. Han Yueli's accumulation was far from the limit of a saint. The life and death calamity was one of the most important methods to increase one's strength. One had to accumulate the strength of a saint to the limit and draw a life and death calamity to step into life and death realm. This was the most perfect choice. Hence, many geniuses would choose to suppress their strength to the 9th level of the Divine Force realm and accumulate their strength. Only those who couldn't suppress their strength would choose to step into the peak of life and death realm. Although there were countless secret techniques in the 9 regions that could conceal the life and death calamity, they were too troublesome and hindrances. Chu Fengmian suppressed Han Yueli's cultivation to the 9th level of Divine Power Realm. This was the most perfect state. Han Yueli was naturally aware of this as well. She opened her eyes and said as she awoke, "My strength has improved by a bit. It's several times stronger than when I fought Flower Seizing Venerable. If I meet him again, I can kill him in one move." Han Yueli said confidently. The meaning behind his words was not blind confidence, but the truth. The current Han Yueli's strength, if converted to strength index, had already broken through 20 points. Just in terms of cultivation, she was twice as strong as Flower Seizing Venerable. Moreover, Han Yueli had profound cold body. Her true battle strength far surpassed her strength. With such strength, if she joined North Mang Academy, she would immediately become a seed disciple. She might even become a rising star, a genius expert among seed disciples. My strength has reached a bottleneck. I have to find other fortuitous encounters in order to break through. However, my massacre sword principle is about to reach greater mastery. As long as my massacre sword principle reaches greater mastery, my strength will be able to improve. Chu Fengmian looked at Han Yueli and said, "With your current strength, even if you join North Mang Academy, you won't be a nobody. At least, you'll be a genius. With fame and status, it'll be much more convenient for you to do things." Chu Fengmian said calmly. North Mang Academy was the place with the cruelest competition. Inside, strength reigned supreme. Without strength, it was a sin, a sin. Only with strength could one make others submit and obtain countless resources. Chu Fengmian naturally understood this point. Things were the same in the 7 major sections. Everything was done according to strength. The stronger the strength, the higher the status. "Is young Master Chu here?" Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It was the housekeeper, Huarui. The two of them had been cultivating for the whole afternoon. Now it was gradually getting dark. "What's the matter?" Chu Fengmian opened the door and walked out. He saw Huarui. In Huarui's hand, there was a red invitation. When he saw Chu Fengmian coming out, he took the initiative to greet him and handed him the invitation. "This is the invitation for tonight's banquet. The banquet will start in 2 hours. Please come as soon as possible." "All right." Chu Fengmian nodded and took the invitation. Chapter 423. The invitation card was engraved with countless complicated restrictions. Even Chu Fengmian had never seen those restrictions before. It seemed like they were the Su family's unique restrictions. Even with Chu Fengmian's current strength, it would be extremely difficult to forge such an invitation card. The Su family did have some foundation, Chu Fengmian thought inwardly. This invitation card represented the Su family's strength to a large extent. With so many restrictions, it could be assumed that they were an incomparably large ancient family. After Hua Rui handed the invitation card to Chu Fengmian, he did not leave. Instead, he took out an empty ring and handed it to Chu Fengmian. Young Master Chu, this is the saint's blood essence that you requested. It's worth 20 billion. I've brought it over. Chu Fengmian received the empty ring and opened it. There were over 100 vats of saint's blood essence. The quality of the saint's blood essence was different. However, according to the price, it was indeed worth 20 billion. Very good. Your Su family is indeed honest in doing business. Chu Fengmian nodded. If there's a need in the future, I'll do business with your Su family. Young Master Chu, please cooperate with us. After Hua Rui finished speaking, he turned around and left. He could not help but reveal a disdainful expression. Doing business? After consuming the saint's blood essence, Chu Fengmian and his group would be controlled by the Su family. The Su family's demon blood was incomparably tyrannical. Once it entered the body of a cultivator, it would occupy the bloodline and the cultivator would have to obey the orders of the Su family. These country bumpkins wasted so much wealth. They might as well give it to our Su family. Hua Rui sneered repeatedly and walked away. When Chu Fengmian returned to his room, he waved his hand and took out the 100 vats of saint's blood essence. Immediately, the entire room was filled with a fragrant smell. The saint's blood essence did not have the smell of blood. It only had a faint fragrance that made one feel relaxed and happy. For some bone-tempering stage and body refinement stage cultivators, as long as they smelled the fragrance of the saint's blood essence, it would be enough to stabilize their cultivation and even improve their cultivation. The Su family actually really sent the saint's blood essence over. Han Yueli, who was standing at the side, said in surprise. Based on how the Su family wanted to scheme against Chu Fengmian, they shouldn't be so ordinary. Of course it won't be so ordinary. There is indeed some conspiracy involved. Chu Fengmian looked at the jar of saint's blood essence. With a thought, a wave of spiritual energy condensed on Chu Fengmian's fingertip. As Chu Fengmian pointed at it, the saint blood essence slowly began to rotate. Then, a drop of barely visible black blood slowly condensed and jumped onto Chu Fengmian's fingertip. This drop of black blood was so small that it was almost impossible to see it clearly. Unless one deliberately looked at it, no one would notice it. After fusing with this vat of saint blood essence, it was impossible to detect the difference. What is this? Seeing this drop of black blood, Han Yueli frowned and said. Although she did not know what this drop of black blood was, she could tell from its appearance that this drop of black blood was definitely not something good. The power in this drop of black essence blood made her feel disgusted. This is demon blood. It's refined from the supreme demon blood divine technique. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He looked at the pulsing demon blood on his finger, and was not surprised at all. He had seen this demon blood in his previous life. The demon blood divine technique in 9 Demon City could be cultivated to great success and condense demon blood. This devil blood can enter a person's body along with some medicinal pills. Once it enters a person's body, it will fuse into their blood vessels. Once the amount of devil blood in a person's body is sufficient, that person will be controlled by the owner of the devil blood. Chu Fengmian explained. When 9 Demon City used some slaves to control them, they would choose to plant demon blood in their bodies. This way they could be directly controlled. Chu Fengmian had long seen that the Su family should be cultivating the demon blood divine technique. What? It's so dangerous? Han Yueli's face changed when she heard Chu Fengmian's words. She could feel the danger of this demon blood. She did not expect that the demon blood would be so dangerous that it could control a person's life and death. If he rashly refined these saint blood essences, it would be terrible. There were traces of demon blood in these 100 vats of saint blood essences. If he refined all of them and allowed the demon blood to fuse with his body, it would be extremely dangerous. Yes, even if only a small part of the demon blood enters the body, it will still be hidden in the blood vessels. When facing an enemy in the future, it will erupt. It will have a great impact in times of crisis. Chu Fengmian said. If the demon blood was accidentally refined into the body, it would be a lifelong disaster. It was definitely one of the most vicious methods in the 9 regions. Then, we can only remove the demon blood in these saint blood essences to refine them. Han Yueli said. No need. Since the family Chu wants to scheme against me, I'll let them scheme to their heart's content. Even if the demon blood enters my body, it will be useless. Instead, it will become my strength. Chu Fengmian smiled and swallowed the demon blood at the tip of his finger. At the same time, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the 100 vats of saint blood essences turned into extremely pure blood qi. Chu Fengmian swallowed all of it and used it to condense his slaughter sword art. In fact, these drops of demon blood required extremely pure spiritual energy to be condensed. Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon, which was many times more powerful than the demon blood. When these drops of demon blood merged into Chu Fengmian's bloodline, they were immediately subdued by the ancient battle dragon bloodline. All of them were turned into pure energy and merged into Chu Fengmian's body. At the same time, a huge blood-red figure slowly appeared behind Chu Fengmian. This blood-red figure was clad in armor that was full of bloodstains. It was the phantom of the ancient god of slaughter. The phantom of the ancient god of slaughter began to condense as Chu Fengmian's blood qi poured into it. The ancient god of slaughter's left hand was gradually condensed. However, the blood qi in Chu Fengmian's body had been completely devoured by the ancient god of slaughter's left hand. It's not easy to condense the ancient god of slaughter. With so much blood qi, I can only condense the weakest left hand. Chu Fengmian slowly opened his eyes and muttered to himself in a low voice. He had not practiced the slaughter sword art in his previous life. He had only heard that it was not easy to practice the slaughter sword art. Now that he saw it, the rumors were true. Chapter 424. The great achievement of the massacre sword art was to condense the form of the ancient god of massacre. With the power of the ancient god of massacre, one could condense the true Tao of massacre. However, to reach the great achievement of the massacre sword art and condense the true form of the ancient god of massacre. In the entire 9 realms, those who could do so were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. To condense it, one had to devour a lot of blood qi. For example, Chu Fengmian had the wealth of the grand competition to buy so much saint blood essence. In addition, all the saint blood essence he obtained from the flower-snatching venerable was only able to condense the weakest left hand of the ancient god of massacre. However, the difficulty of condensing it was within Chu Fengmian's expectation. If it was so easy to condense it, the massacre sword art wouldn't be so famous. The greater the power, the greater the price to pay. For example, although Chu Fengmian was powerful, it was extremely difficult for him to break through. At least, Chu Fengmian didn't feel that he had any chance to break through. He had to find more fortuitous encounters. Ancient god of massacre. Strength enhancement. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. Behind him, the ancient god of massacre's left hand condensed. The world's most powerful killing intent condensed one after another. For a moment, the world seemed to have turned into a sea of blood. When the god of massacre appeared, the world was covered in blood. Even Han Yueli, who was beside Chu Fengmian, couldn't help but condense his spiritual power to resist. One had to admit that the massacre sword art was indeed powerful. It was worthy of being one of the most powerful sword arts in the 9 regions. Just by condensing the weakest left hand, it already possessed such terrifying power. If it could go one step further and condense the ancient god of massacre's right hand, or even condense the entire ancient god of massacre, the massacre sword art could be perfected and strengthened. Feeling the current power of the massacre sword art, Chu Fengmian took a deep breath and dispersed the ancient god of massacre's shadow behind him. The terrifying murderous intent on Chu Fengmian's body finally disappeared. Feeling the disappearance of Chu Fengmian's killing intent, Han Yueli couldn't help but sigh. This swordsmanship is really powerful. Even I feel great pressure from it. Even Han Yueli didn't dare to get close to Chu Fengmian when Chu Fengmian activated his massacre sword art and condensed his killing intent. Even though she knew that Chu Fengmian would not attack her, she felt that she would be killed by Chu Fengmian if she rashly approached him. The addition of the killing intent of the ancient god of slaughter was indeed a terrifying thing. If I want to advance a step further, then I have to obtain even more Saint Blood Essence. 400 vats? 500 tanks? 600 vats. At the very least, I need to double the amount to be able to condense the other parts of the ancient god of massacre. Chu Fengmian stopped and said calmly. Now, this weakest left hand had cost Chu Fengmian no less than 200 vats of Saint Blood Essence. If he wanted to take another step forward, he would have to pay several times the price. I even need to find some Fey God Essence blood. The vital chi of the Fey God Essence blood is much denser than the Saint Essence blood. It's even more useful to me. Chu Fengmian said. The spiritual energy of the Fey God Essence blood might be similar to that of the Saint Essence blood, but the vital chi of the Fey God Essence blood far surpassed that of the Saint Essence blood. After all, how terrifying was the vital chi of a Fey God? It would probably surpass the vital chi of a human saint by dozens of times. If he only relied on the Saint Essence blood to make another breakthrough, he didn't know how much energy it would take. If he used the Fey God Essence blood, it would save him a lot of effort. Let's go to the banquet. Chu Fengmian woke up and said. He wanted to see what the Su family was planning to do at the banquet. Okay. Han Yueli nodded. Tuobading, who was in the room next door, also woke up. He walked out and followed Chu Fengmian out of the room. With the strength of the 3 of them, they arrived in front of an incomparably huge palace in the Su family in an instant. There were countless Su family guards around the palace. The security was extremely tight. One after another, powerful warriors came out and gathered around the palace. Get out of the way. The people from the Wang family are here. Just as Chu Fengmian arrived in front of the palace, someone suddenly shouted. Then, the countless people in the surroundings retreated like floodwaters. They opened up an incomparably wide path and stepped aside. Then, a carriage came out from the path. The carriage was actually an Earth-grade spiritual artifact that was refined using various methods. Ordinary saints would not be able to threaten the people inside the carriage. The horses that pulled the carriage were no ordinary horses. They were horses that possessed a strand of the true dragon's bloodline, the Scarlet Qilin horse. It was said that they possessed the bloodline of the true dragon and could travel 10,000 miles in a day. A Scarlet Qilin horse like that was worth at least 100 million 9 cauldron pills. There were a total of 8 Scarlet Qilin horses in the carriage. In addition to the carriage, the value of the carriage was at least 1 billion. What an imposing manner. It seems like the Wang family is also a big family. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Then, he activated his spiritual consciousness and observed the carriage. The carriage slowly came to a stop in front of the palace. A white-haired man walked out of the carriage. The white-haired man looked like he was in his early 20s. For some reason, his hair was completely white. When he got out of the carriage, he glanced at the crowd with disdain in his eyes. This person is Wang Ao, an inner disciple of our Northern Mang Academy. However, it is said that he is about to be promoted to a seed disciple. His power index is close to 10 and he is only a step away from becoming a seed disciple. He is almost invincible among the inner disciples. When Tuoba Ding saw the white-haired man, he suddenly whispered to Chu Fengmian, "The power of the Wang family is even greater than the Tuoba family behind me. They are very influential in the Northern Mang Academy. The people from the Su family are actually related to the Wang family?" Tuoba Ding's voice was filled with astonishment. It seemed like he was not aware of the existence of this relationship. There are actually disciples from the Northern Mang Academy here. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a smile. This was getting more and more interesting. It's Wang Ao. Why is the people from the Wang family in our Dou-Xian nation? When the countless people in the surroundings saw Wang Ao, they were incomparably shocked. Every one of them was in disbelief. They did not know why Wang Ao was here. Chapter 425. Everyone waited until Wang Ao entered the palace before they continued to line up to enter. Invitation card. Chu Fengmian took out the invitation card and walked into the palace. The unfamiliar faces of Chu Fengmian and the other two attracted the attention of some people. Most of the people who came to the banquet were experts from Xiandou City. They were all disciples of major clans, and they were all familiar faces. Seeing the three unfamiliar faces like Chu Fengmian, many people began to discuss. I heard that the Su family's young lady Jean was killed by the Earth Demon Sect's flower-seizing venerable. These three people saved young lady Jean. Some well-informed people already knew that Su Jean had been killed by the flower-seizing venerable. After all, Su Jean was not a nameless person. She was a well-known figure among the younger generation of the Su family. The news of her death quickly spread throughout the entire Xiandou city. Really? The flower-seizing venerable's strength is sufficient to contend against some of the Northern Mang Academy's seed disciples. Can these three people really kill the flower-seizing venerable? If these three people encountered the flower-seizing venerable, I'm afraid they would be killed instantly. I don't know. I heard that these three people took advantage of the situation. However, they actually came to the Su family. I wonder what the Su family is thinking. Recruitment? I'm afraid that these people are not qualified to be recruited by the Su family. Voices of doubt rang out. Brother Wang, it's these people who saved young lady Jean. In the depths of the palace, several young men were gathered together. These young men were all at the 9th level of the divine power realm. Practically every one of them was a person who could pass through a life and death calamity at any time. However, in order to accumulate strength, they did not make a breakthrough. Even so, they still had the strength of an inner disciple of the Northern Mang Academy. This group of young men was the young man from the Wang family who had just made a name for himself, Wang Ao. Humph, 3 ants. They only took advantage of the situation. They actually want Jean to give them benefit. They simply don't know when to stop. Wang Ao glanced at Chu Fengmian. His eyes were filled with disdain as he spoke coldly. That flower-seizing venerable dared to kill Jean. If he doesn't die, I will kill him sooner or later. I don't know why they were invited to tonight's banquet. It's simply a killjoy. Forget it. I'll tell them to back off. Wang Ao said as he walked towards Chu Fengmian. At the same time, Chu Fengmian and the others had also noticed Wang Ao's actions. This Wang Ao seems to have ill intentions. What should we do? Han Weli asked. Wang Ao's strength was even weaker than the flower-seizing venerable. In Han Weli's opinion, he was someone she could defeat with a wave of her hand. However, Wang Ao still had a powerful family behind her, so she was still used to relying on Chu Fengmian to make decisions. Even though Han Yueli's strength could be regarded as an ancestor, she still liked to do as Chu Fengmian said. This kind of dependence could no longer be changed. Different situations call for different measures. Don't worry too much about it, Chu Fengmian said casually. Chu Fengmian did not care about Wang Ao's background. As long as Wang Ao did not cause trouble for him, he would not care. You're Chu Fengmian? The person who saved Jin Er? Wang Ao swaggered in front of Chu Fengmian and said coldly. Wang Ao was dressed in luxurious clothes and looked like a noble from a famous family. His every move was incomparably arrogant, which matched his name very well. His words were extremely conceited and arrogant. Brother Wang, you're here too? Just as Wang Ao opened his mouth, Su Jin suddenly walked over and looked at Chu Fengmian with a smile. Young Master Chu is here too. Please take a seat. I hope everyone can enjoy tonight's banquet. Jin Er, there's no need to be polite with these trash. Tonight's banquet is not something they can attend with their status. Wang Ao looked at Chu Fengmian and the others and said with disdain. If these trash didn't want any benefits after saving you, I might think more highly of them. They're just a bunch of profit-seeking trash. They don't even have the strength to ask for benefit. What a joke. Today, I'll help you beat up these three trash. After Wang Ao finished speaking, he turned his head and looked at Chu Fengmian and coldly said, Tonight's banquet is not something you three trash can attend. You saved Jin Er's life, so I'll repay you with 3 lives. This is 1,000,000,009 cauldron pills. It's enough to repay your lives. Take it and get lost. Don't appear in Xiando City again. As Wang Ao spoke, he waved his hand. Immediately, 1,000,000,009 cauldron pills appeared and flew towards Chu Fengmian. After speaking, he didn't even look at Chu Fengmian. It was as if he was too lazy to bother with him. He felt that Chu Fengmian would obediently take the 1,000,000,009 cauldron pills and leave. Seeing the 1,000,000,009 cauldron pills flying over, Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a cold smile. It seemed that he didn't want to cause trouble, but trouble came looking for him. His body moved and dodged. The 1,000,000,009 cauldron pills fell to the ground. Crash! The 1,000,000,009 cauldron pills scattered on the ground. This sound attracted the attention of countless people, and they all looked over. What? You 3 good-for-nothings actually dare to not accept my medicinal pills? Wang Ao turned around and looked at the 9 cauldron pills on the ground. His expression revealed a bit of anger. I'll give you another 1,000,000,000. Get lost. As he spoke, Wang Ao waved his hand again and threw out another 1,000,009 cauldron pills. This time, the 1,000,009 cauldron pills were directly condensed by a surge of spiritual energy. It directly turned into an incomparably huge fist and suddenly smashed towards Chu Fengmian. This power was to directly hit Chu Fengmian and his group out of the palace. Humph! Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. His body flashed and turned into countless shadows. He immediately dodged. The 1,000,009 cauldron pills had no target. Once again, they shattered and rolled on the ground. Now, the palace was full of 9 cauldron pills rolling on the ground. 3 trash dare to refuse me twice. You're courting death. Kid, I'll give you one last chance. Kneel on the ground and pick up all the 9 cauldron pills. Don't use spiritual energy. Pick them up with your bare hands and then get lost. Wang Ao roared angrily. He didn't expect that Chu Fengmian would dare to resist him. Who was he? He was a genius of the Wang family and an inner disciple of the Wuxing Academy. He was even about to be promoted to a seed disciple. His status was high. In the entire Dark City, he was an invincible existence. Who was Chu Fengmian? In his opinion, he was just a bumpkin from a remote country. Such a person dared to resist him? In the past, he wouldn't even take a second look at a saint from such a remote place. Now that he gave the 9 cauldron pills, Chu Fengmian actually refused to take them. This made his face turn red with anger. Today's update will continue tomorrow. Chapter 426. In Wang Ao's opinion, since he had taken out 2,000,009 cauldron pills, Chu Fengmian should obediently take them and leave. He was an inner disciple of the Beimang Academy. If he couldn't even deal with a few martial artists from a remote country, this was simply a great humiliation to him. You want the 3 of us to leave with just 2,000,009 cauldron pills? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he sneered. All right, I'll give you 10 times more. Get out of here. Under everyone's gaze, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and countless 9 cauldron pills appeared, forming a long river. A total of 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills appeared. What a huge amount of wealth! How could this young man have such a huge amount of wealth? 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills. 2 billion. Even some big families might not be able to take out such a huge amount of wealth. It seems that these people aren't ordinary people from remote countries. With such a huge amount of wealth, this is going to be a good show. Some of the martial artists started to whisper among themselves. The 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills suddenly burned in Chu Fengmian's hand and turned into an endless amount of pure spiritual energy. It formed a huge fist and blasted towards Wang Ao. 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills were burned and turned into spiritual energy. No one dared to imagine how powerful it would be. This punch caused the entire palace to tremble. In fact, many powerful cultivators were startled and rushed over to take a look at the unbelievable scene before them. Burning 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills. Even if this person has endless wealth, he can't afford to waste it like this. What a waste! What a waste! 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills is enough to nurture countless saints. Now, it's all burned by this person. Some of the martial artists who were watching gritted their teeth in jealousy. They might not be able to get 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills in their lifetime. However, in Chu Fengmian's hand, it was burned and turned into pure spiritual energy. It condensed into a fist and blasted towards Wang Ao. There was no technique in this punch. It was a violent punch that condensed the spiritual energy of 2,000,000,009 cauldron pills. Wang Ao's face suddenly changed. He waved his hand and all of the spiritual energy in his body burst out and condensed on his fist. Suddenly, Wang Ao punched out as well. His fist contained an extremely tyrannical power. It transformed into an enormous fist wind and shot forth. When the two fists collided, Wang Ao's fist wind was instantly destroyed. Chu Fengmian's fist smashed into Wang Ao's body. This caused him to take several steps back and spit out large mouthfuls of blood before he slowly stabilized himself. The entire palace trembled slightly because of this punch. Wang Ao actually lost. In terms of strength, Wang Ao has always been an invincible existence. Since when was he defeated by someone? 20,000,000,009 cauldron pills, just for a single punch. This young man is too extravagant. However, it's true that wealth can crush people to death. Even Wang Ao was defeated. Some warriors looked at Chu Fengmian and shook their heads. Chu Fengmian had defeated Wang Ao. Everyone could see that Chu Fengmian's strength was negligible. What he truly relied on was the 20,000,000,009 cauldron pills that he had burned. However, in a battle, one's means were never important. A loss was a loss. Chu Fengmian's wealth was also his strength. I intended to give these 20,000,000,009 cauldron pills to you. Unfortunately, you can't accept it. Chu Fengmian looked at Wang Ao and sneered. Get lost. If you don't, you'll die next time. As Chu Fengmian spoke, countless 9 cauldron pills appeared in his palm again. This time, it was another 20,000,009 cauldron pills. Chu Fengmian's wealth seemed to be endless. With a wave of his hand, another 20,000,009 cauldron pills appeared. Another 20,000,009 cauldron pills. How much wealth does this person have? Could it be that he obtained some ancient treasure to have such a huge amount of wealth? No, we can't underestimate this person. With such wealth, even if he's not strong, he's extremely terrifying. Even Wang Ao was defeated by him. The onlookers were extremely shocked when they saw Chu Fengmian take out another 20,000,009 cauldron pills. Chu Fengmian's wealth was simply unfathomable. Even the disciples from the big families wouldn't be so extravagant. Wang Ao slowly stood up. There were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked at Chu Fengmian and was about to attack. However, when he saw the 20,000,009 cauldron pills in Chu Fengmian's hand, his expression changed. He was unwilling to accept the outcome, but he didn't dare to attack anymore. If it happened again, it would be impossible for him to withstand it. It was already his good fortune to be able to withstand such an attack once. Good. I didn't expect that I, Wang Ao, would be defeated by you today. However, don't be complacent. Pills are ultimately not your strength. Sooner or later, I'll kill you. I'll get all of your wealth. Wang Ao said coldly and cruelly. He then turned around and left without looking back. Today, he suffered such a great humiliation that he didn't have the face to appear at the banquet. Outside the palace, Wang Ao's angry voice could still be heard. Given his arrogance, he couldn't bear to be slapped in the face. This conflict actually ended with Chu Fengmian's victory. This was something that no one had expected. Even Su Jin's eyes flickered. No one knew what she was thinking. She walked over and said softly to Chu Fengmian. Today's banquet was supposed to let young Master Chu have a good rest and have fun. I didn't expect such a thing to happen. I'll ask Wang Ao to apologize to young Master Chu first. Su Jin said. Given Wang Ao's character, he won't let this matter go. Please be careful, young Master Chu. The meaning behind her words was very sincere. However, she was the one who caused this trouble for Wang Ao. Chu Fengmian could only sneer at this scene. However, Chu Fengmian's expression was very calm. It was as if he didn't take it to heart. Don't worry. Even if Wang Ao dares to come, I'll make him vomit blood. Chu Fengmian said nonchalantly. It was as if Wang Ao was not a threat to him at all. When Su Jin heard Chu Fengmian's words, she seemed to be thinking about something. Since Chu Fengmian was so confident, it was obvious that he had a trump card. This meant that Chu Fengmian's wealth was much more than that. I'm very grateful to Burning Dream and Infatuated Longzi for their tip. I'm a little late today, but I'll continue to update. Chapter 427. Today, Chu Fengmian had spent 20 billion 9 cauldron pills to purchase a large amount of Saint Blood Essence. Now, in order to defeat Wang Ao, he burned another 20 billion 9 cauldron pills and took out another 20 billion 9 cauldron pills. The wealth that Chu Fengmian displayed today was already 6 billion 9 cauldron pills. Moreover, it seemed like Chu Fengmian's wealth was far more than that. Su Jin asked tentatively. Young Master Chu needs a large amount of Saint Blood Essence? Chu Fengmian nodded. That's right. In order to increase my strength and enter the Divine Power Realm as soon as possible to become a saint, I need a large amount of Saint Blood Essence to refine. In the Northern Mang Academy, one needed to be at least in the Divine Power Realm to become an inner disciple. Otherwise, one could only become an outer disciple. In fact, outer disciples had to take on heavy tasks and couldn't cultivate wholeheartedly. Only inner disciples could be considered as true disciples of the Northern Mang Academy and could cultivate in peace. Chu Fengmian's realm was the peak of the wind controlling realm. This was Chu Fengmian's true realm. No matter how one probed, the result would be the same. However, Chu Fengmian's words were flawless and Su Jin believed him. Our Su family actually has a batch of Saint Blood Essence. I wonder if young Master Chu is interested? However, this batch of Saint Blood Essence is huge. Su Jin pondered for a moment and said, if young Master Chu needs it, I can represent the Su family to sell you a portion. A portion? Miss Su Jin, don't worry. No matter how much Saint Blood Essence your Su family has, I can buy it all. 50 billion? 60 billion? Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. Chu Fengmian's actions really looked like a nouveau riche. With a wave of his hand, Chu Fengmian quietly took out countless 9 cauldron pills. This time, there were close to 100 billion. Seeing the 100 billion 9 cauldron pills, Su Jin's eyes were filled with greed. She couldn't wait to snatch all of Chu Fengmian's wealth. Su Jin had never seen someone take out 100 billion 9 cauldron pills in one breath. Even a huge family like the Su family would have to suffer a great loss to take out 100 billion 9 cauldron pills. Su Jin quickly calmed down. At this moment, she did not wish to reveal any abnormalities. In any case, The essence blood of countless saints contained demonic blood. The more Chu Fengmian refined, the more they would control him. At that time, they would be able to control Chu Fengmian unknowingly, and everything on Chu Fengmian would belong to them. Su Jin couldn't help but sneer when he thought of this. So what if he had a lot of wealth? Chu Fengmian's wealth would sooner or later belong to the Su family. Su Jin said with a smile. Our Su family has a total of 150 billion saint blood essences. May I know how much young Master Chu needs? It's only 150 billion. Don't worry, Miss Su Jin. This Chu is still capable of taking out such a small amount of wealth. Chu Fengmian said disapprovingly. It was as if 150 billion was nothing to Chu Fengmian. He waved his hand and an extremely deep spiritual medicine river appeared. The 9 cauldron pills were densely packed and there was a total of 150 billion of them. This Chu wants this batch of saint blood essences. After saying that, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the 150 billion 9 cauldron pills flew towards Su Jin. As soon as Chu Fengmian's voice sounded, Su Jin's face slightly stiffened. She did not expect Chu Fengmian to be so straightforward. Taking out 150 billion 9 cauldron pills was as simple as drinking water. That was 150 billion. This kind of wealth. Even some life and death experts would not be able to take out such a sum. If their Su family wanted to transfer 150 billion 9 cauldron pills, they would have to suffer a huge loss. Moreover, it was very likely that they would not be able to take out so many pills. After all, this was a huge amount of wealth. The wealth Chu Fengmian displayed right now was enough to compare with an incomparably huge family. Su Jin originally guessed that Chu Fengmian only had a small fortuitous encounter. But now, it seemed that Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter was simply astonishing. Otherwise, how could he have such wealth? Su Jin was stunned by Chu Fengmian. Only after a long time did she react. She hastily received the 150 billion 9 cauldron pills and carefully stored them in her spatial ring. After all, this was the first time she had seen so much wealth. She was extremely nervous. I'll order people to deliver this batch of saint blood essence to young Master Chu's residence. Su Jin said. No hurry. In any case, I still believe in Miss Su Jin's sincerity. Chu Fengmian smiled. Suddenly, he changed the topic. Oh right, Miss Su Jin, do you know anything about the North Sea Academy's examination quota? How is it? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Su Jin sneered. This Chu Fengmian was about to lose his life, yet he was still thinking about the North Sea Academy's examination. However, her expression was extremely calm as she spoke with a somewhat difficult expression. The North Sea Academy's examination quota has already been decided. Many Su family's disciples are unwilling to hand over the quota. It's also very difficult for me. If we give them some compensation, it might be a little easier. Su Jin's expression seemed to be extremely difficult, as if she was powerless. Compensation? That's easy. The North Sea Academy's examination quota is precious. I'm naturally aware of this. I'm willing to offer 3 billion 9 cauldron pills in exchange for 3 of the quotas, Chu Fengmian said with a smile. His tone was extremely relaxed. It was as if the matter of wealth was nothing to him. He waved his hand and another 3 billion 9 cauldron pills appeared. They flew towards Su Jin. This was what it meant to treat money like dirt. Many people looked at Chu Fengmian as if they were looking at a fat sheep. Such enormous wealth was something that everyone wanted to obtain. However, this fat sheep was currently being slaughtered by the Su family. They could only watch and sigh. Why couldn't they encounter a fat sheep like Chu Fengmian? Great! With these 9 cauldron pills, there should be many Su family's disciples who are willing to give up their quota. Su Jin received the 3 billion 9 cauldron pills and her expression instantly became a lot more relaxed. Young Master Chu, please wait for a few more days. After a few days, the quota will definitely be sent over. All right. Chu Fengmian nodded. The following banquet was extremely peaceful. After the banquet was over, Chu Fengmian and the others returned to the palace. Chapter 428. After the gathering was over, Su Jin did not return to her room. Instead, she took her empty ring, which was filled with 180 billion nine cauldron pills, and went to a forbidden area in the Su family's mansion. Soon, she entered the depths of the forbidden area. The depths of the forbidden area were filled with countless restrictions and formations. It was impossible to explore the mysteries within. Su Jin stood in front of an ancient stone chamber and slowly formed a series of hand seals. Soon, the stone door in front of the stone chamber opened, and an extremely dignified and ancient voice sounded from within. "What is it? Why have you disturbed this old man?" The dignified and ancient voice contained a trace of anger. It was as if he was angry at being disturbed. Hearing the anger, Su Jin could not help but reveal a trace of nervousness on her face. However, she still spoke. "Ancestor, we've obtained another large amount of 9 cauldron pills. Father asked me to bring them over. Come in and speak." Boom! With a sound, Su Jin's body was directly pulled into the stone chamber. The stone chamber did not appear to be as small and narrow as it appeared from the outside. The inside of the chamber was a world of its own. It was a mysterious country. Within this mysterious country, an incomparably huge pill furnace was burning fiercely. What was supporting the furnace was not ordinary firewood. Instead, it was countless pills. Countless 9 cauldron pills were burning wildly within the furnace. An old man was sitting before the furnace. "Ancestor, Father asked me to bring these pills. These are the new 9 cauldron pills we obtained today." Su Jin hurriedly spoke when she saw the old man. She opened her empty ring, and 180 billion 9 cauldron pills immediately flew out. Like a long river, they surrounded the furnace. When the 180 billion 9 cauldron pills appeared at the same time, a medicinal fragrance immediately spread out. The old man could not help but raise his head. A trace of astonishment appeared in his eyes. "In just a short day, you've actually managed to collect so many 9 cauldron pills? What's going on?" "It's like this." Su Jin opened her mouth and told the old man about Chu Fengmian. "That person actually possesses such a large amount of wealth? You've done well. You've used the demon blood to control him. All of his wealth will belong to us. However, we should not be able to completely control him right now." The Su family's ancestor slowly spoke. "Now, this is the most crucial moment of refining the sky primordial spirit pills. These pills, they're not enough. You must obtain even more. As long as I can refine the primordial spirit pills, no one in this Xian donation, on the other hand, no one will be my opponent." The heavens, the Su family's ancestors, the family's ancestors' eyes were filled with longing. "But all the saint blood essences in the warehouse have been sold?" Su Jin asked hesitantly. "Humph, even if I don't have the sage's blood essence, I can still sell the demon god's blood essence. Right now, refining the Tianyuan spirit pill is the most important thing." The old ancestor of the Su family coldly snorted. "Doesn't that brat need to refine the saint's blood essence to raise his cultivation? I need to get more 9 cauldron pills." Su Jin nodded and hurriedly left the room. All of this took place in the hidden nation. However, neither the Su family's ancestor nor Su Jin realized that there was a pair of eyes in this hidden nation. Chu Fengmian's spiritual awareness followed Su Jin all the way to this hidden nation. All of this exchange was under Chu Fengmian's surveillance. Sky primordial spirit pill? I didn't expect the Su family's ancestor to refine such a pill. What Chu Fengmian cared about the most was the Sky primordial spirit pill. The Sky primordial spirit pill was a famous pill in the 9 regions. It was one of the best among the heaven-grade pills. It was definitely one of the most valuable pills. The materials used to refine the Sky primordial spirit pill were extremely precious. Especially during the refining process, there was a special point. It required an endless amount of pills to burn. using the spiritual energy of countless pills to refine the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill. Although the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill was extremely difficult to refine, there were still countless experts who wanted to try refining it. After all, once the refinement was successful, the benefits were incomparably huge. The Sky Primordial Spirit Pill was the most powerful pill in the 9 regions for raising one's realm. Once consumed, the martial artist's body would be completely transformed. At the same time, it would forcibly raise one's realm. Even life and death experts could borrow the power of the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill to forcefully break through. Every realm in the life and death realm was like a heavenly chasm. Every breakthrough was extremely difficult. The Su family's ancestors' realm was still around the second layer of the life and death realm, with a battle index of 30. However, if he succeeded in refining the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill, once he broke through, his battle index would soar by several folds, reaching over 100 points. Every breakthrough in the life and death realm was a qualitative change. Although Chu Fengmian had guessed that the Su family must have a purpose for collecting so many pills, he didn't expect it to be to refine the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill. What do we do now? If we buy the Saint Blood essence of the Su family, the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill might really be refined. Han Yueli couldn't help but frown after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. Why don't we leave first? The Sky Primordial Spirit Pill hasn't been refined yet. If we want to leave, the Su family shouldn't be able to stop us. She also knew about the miraculous nature of the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill. Once the Su family's ancestor succeeded in refining the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill, Chu Fengmian and the other 2 wouldn't be able to contend against him. Leave? Hearing Han Yueli's words, Chu Fengmian sneered. The Su family had schemed against Chu Fengmian for half a day. If Chu Fengmian left with his tail between his legs, it wouldn't be his style. Moreover, the Su family schemed against him, but he was also schemed against the Su family. No, I want to buy more Saint Blood essence so that the Su family can refine the Sky Primordial Spirit Pill. Do they really think that I'll be a fool and give them so many pills? Chu Fengmian laughed heartily. With a tap of his finger, a 9-cauldron pill appeared in his palm. This 9-cauldron pill looked incomparably normal. However, with a thought from Chu Fengmian, a fine golden grain suddenly appeared within it. This golden grain was none other than a drop of battle dragon blood condensed by Chu Fengmian. The Su family wanted to use the demon blood to control Chu Fengmian. However, they didn't expect that all the 9 cauldron pills Chu Fengmian gave them contained the battle dragon blood. Seeing that everyone was urging her to write, Xiao Yu didn't sleep either. She had been writing all this time. Her writing was too powerful. Finally, she finished writing another chapter. Chapter 429. To dare scheme against me, I will make those people from the Su family spit them out. Chu Fengmian sneered. If the blood of the battle dragon contained in the 9 cauldron pills were all refined into the heavenly primordial spirit pills, this Tianyuan spirit pill contained the power of the battle dragon's blood. At that time, it would be hard to say who the owner of the Tianyuan divine pill would be. Chu Fengmian was a top-notch alchemist in his past life. It was a piece of cake for him to secretly change the structure of the Tianyuan spirit pill. Originally, Chu Fengmian had no interest in becoming enemies with the Su family. However, if they were to offend him, then he would retaliate. Since the Su family wanted to scheme against him, then Chu Fengmian would be able to beat them at their own game. A single Tianyuan spirit pill was of great use to Chu Fengmian. The moment he saw the Tianyuan spirit pill, Chu Fengmian saw some hope for a breakthrough. Chu Fengmian's current realm was stuck at the peak of the Imperial Wind Realm, and he was unable to make a breakthrough for a long time. The ancient war dragon's blood essence in his body was also stuck at 1,296 drop. As a result, Chu Fengmian's current strength had no room for improvement. Although Chu Fengmian's strength could still increase by another step after he had condensed the massacre sword art, it was still not enough. However, if he wanted to improve further, He had to break through first. The threshold of the divine force realm was something Chu Fengmian had to cross. Once he entered the divine power realm, the ancient battle dragon's blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body would truly be able to unleash its greatest prowess. By then, his strength would definitely increase tremendously. His cultivation base would also skyrocket. Chu Fengmian had to get the Tianyuan Shen pill. Chu Fengmian pondered. Is young Master Chu here? Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. I am Huarui. I have been ordered to deliver the saint's blood essence to young Master Chu. Chu Fengmian opened the door and saw Huarui walking over with an empty ring in his hand. When he saw Chu Fengmian come out, he immediately handed the empty ring over. Chu Fengmian infused a surge of spiritual energy into it. When he opened it, he saw that it was a saint's blood essence worth 150 billion 9 cauldron pills. This batch of saint blood essence appeared to be much purer than the previous batch. It seemed that the Su family had indeed brought out all their trump cards. The vats of saint blood essence were extremely fragrant and contained extremely powerful energy. They were all saint blood essences at the pinnacle. Not bad, they are all good stuff. Chu Fengmian nodded and put away the spatial ring. Go back and tell young Miss Su Jin that if the Su family has any more sage blood essence or demon deity blood essence, she can come and look for me. Yes, I will pass the message to Miss Jin. Huarui nodded his head and retreated. His eyes were filled with a cold sneer. Chu Fengmian naturally saw through Huarui's thoughts, but he was too lazy to bicker with Huarui. Chu Fengmian returned to his room and set up layers of restrictions. It covered the entire room, making it impossible for anyone to notice the changes in the room. Chu Fengmian's massacre sword art was close to reaching the great success stage. Once he started cultivating it, his killing intent would be too terrifying. If he didn't conceal it, the entire Su family and the entire profound battle city would be able to detect it. He didn't want to reveal his strength so early. After setting everything up, Chu Fengmian took out the hundreds of vats of saint blood essences. With a wave of his hand, the countless amounts of saint blood essences turned into a boundless amount of pure blood aura. Behind Chu Fengmian, an incomparably huge silhouette of the primordial massacre god appeared and began to frantically devour the boundless blood aura. Chu Fengmian could already sense the delight of the primordial massacre god behind him as it continued to devour the boundless blood aura. At the same time, Chu Fengmian gathered all the demon blood together. It was placed inside Chu Fengmian's bloodline, but he didn't refine it even after a long time. Once he refined it, the people from the Su family would naturally sense that something was wrong. Thus, Chu Fengmian only used the power of the battle dragon bloodline to suppress the demon blood. However, even if the demon blood wasn't refined, it wouldn't be able to harm Chu Fengmian. After all, with the suppression of the ancient battle dragon bloodline, as long as Chu Fengmian wanted to, he could refine the demon blood whenever he wanted. He wasn't worried at all. The boundless blood aura was completely devoured by the silhouette of the primordial massacre god behind Chu Fengmian. Gradually, the feet of the silhouette of the primordial massacre god began to solidify. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned red as he was affected by the boundless killing intent. However, Chu Fengmian didn't let the killing intent get to his head. He was incomparably calm as he controlled the killing intent and used the power of the killing intent, not being controlled by it. Boom, boom, boom. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy fluctuated as he devoured such an enormous amount of blood aura in one breath. This was something that Chu Fengmian had never done before. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, after a full 3 days, the feet of the silhouette of the primordial massacre god behind Chu Fengmian slowly condensed. This time, Chu Fengmian felt that his slaughtering sword technique had taken a big step forward. Now, the only thing he lacked was his most powerful right hand and body. Once the right hand and body of the slaughtering god were condensed, Chu Fengmian's slaughtering sword technique would be able to reach great success and summon the power of the primordial massacre god to fight for him. Are you done with your cultivation? Han Yueli stood aside, quietly guarding Chu Fengmian's cultivation. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at Chu Fengmian. My realm has reached a bottleneck and I can break through any time, but my strength hasn't reached the peak yet. I can only wait for a while and look for more fortuitous encounters. Han Yueli was breaking through. She wasn't as simple as a peak saint anymore. She would probably attract a life and death calamity with a single leap. After all, her strength was too powerful. Once she broke through to the peak saint realm, the strength in her body would completely attract a life and death calamity. Don't worry. There must be other fortuitous encounters waiting for us in the Beimang Academy. We'll plan after we enter the Beimang Academy. Chu Fengmian said. The accumulation in the divine power realm is extremely important. It must be accumulated to the limit so that the following cultivation can be smooth. The divine power realm was a watershed. The accumulation in the divine power realm was related to the future achievements. Therefore, he couldn't be impatient. He must suppress his strength to the limit. He could only break through when he couldn't suppress it anymore. Yes. Han Yueli nodded. She didn't cultivate anymore. She just practiced controlling the profound cold force every day to control her strength. Young Master Chu, are you done with your secluded cultivation? A female voice suddenly sounded. It was Su Jin's voice that came from outside the door. Today's fourth update is too difficult to write. I tried my best, but I can only write one less. Chapter 430. Although Su Jin's voice sounded extremely calm, it was still extremely calm. However, Chu Fengmian could hear the anxiety in Su Jin's voice. Chu Fengmian already knew that Su Jin was waiting outside the door. However, she didn't dare to disturb him when he was cultivating. Now that Chu Fengmian had finally finished cultivating, she hurriedly called out. Miss Su Jin, is something the matter? Chu Fengmian opened the door and looked at Su Jin with a smile. I've been studying cultivation techniques these past few days, so I didn't see Miss Su Jin. Young Master Chu has already finished refining that batch of Saint's blood essence? Sensing the demonic blood hidden in Chu Fengmian's body, Su Jin revealed a cold smile and said without batting an eyelid. Young Master Chu's strength seems to have improved a lot. It's just a small breakthrough. Chu Fengmian smiled casually. He deliberately didn't want to refine the demonic blood to show Su Jin. Otherwise, if the demonic blood was refined, Su Jin wouldn't believe Chu Fengmian's words. Su Jin could feel the demonic blood in Chu Fengmian's body. Therefore, she didn't doubt Chu Fengmian's words. Chu Fengmian looked at Su Jin and said casually. It's just that this batch of Saint's blood essence isn't enough. The cultivation technique I'm cultivating just happens to require a large amount of Saint's blood essence. I wonder if Su family has any more Saint's blood essence? I can spend a large amount of wealth to buy it. As Chu Fengmian spoke, his palm moved, and a long river of spirit herbs appeared. Immediately, it was filled with billions of 9 cauldron pills. Seeing this scene, Su Jin's eyes couldn't help but brighten. Sure enough, Chu Fengmian's wealth wasn't limited to this. Refining the Heaven Origin Spirit Pill required close to 1 trillion 9 cauldron pills. Now, she was selling countless Saint's blood essence to Chu Fengmian. Firstly, she could exchange it for 9 cauldron pills. Secondly, she could use the demonic blood in the Saint's blood essence to control Chu Fengmian. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Su Jin's face couldn't help but reveal a cold smile. Everything about Chu Fengmian had been calculated by her. Not only did she want to seize all of Chu Fengmian's wealth, she even wanted him to become her slave. After all, even life and death experts would be under the control of the demonic blood. The more demonic blood in Chu Fengmian's body, the more thorough her control would be. Our Su family does not have any more Saint blood essence. Young Master Chu, you have bought all of it. Su Jin slowly opened his mouth and said when he saw Chu Fengmian's somewhat disappointed expression. However, does young Master Chu need the demon god's blood essence? There is still a batch of demon god blood essence in our Su family's warehouse. Of course I do. How many? Chu Fengmian said with greed in his eyes. Su Jin did not say anything. Suddenly, she waved her hand, and countless vats appeared before Chu Fengmian. These vats were much larger than the vats that contained the saint blood essence, and the blood within them was of different colors. The fragrance that wafted out from it was still very fragrant. This was the demon god's blood essence, the blood essence of demonic beasts that had reached the divine force realm. The blood chi of the demon god essence blood was much denser than that of the saint essence blood. However, it was much more difficult to obtain the demon god essence blood than the saint essence blood. After all, under normal circumstances, demon gods would hide in the demon region, and would rarely appear, much less be killed by others. This batch of demon god essence blood was also one of the batches of demon god essence blood that the Xiandou nation had obtained from a battle with a demon region. The price of this demon god essence blood is much more expensive than the saint essence blood. This batch is worth roughly 200 million 9 cauldron pills. Su Jin took a glance at Chu Fengmian and said, "Of course, if young Master Chu only needs a portion of it, we are also willing to sell a portion of it." Su Jin added, 200 million 9 cauldron pills was an astronomical figure. It was truly too difficult to take out such a sum in one go. For fear that Chu Fengmian would not buy it, she deliberately added. However, Chu Fengmian's following words caused Su Jin's expression to change completely. "It's merely 200 million 9 cauldron pills. Did you think that this Chu would not be able to take out such a sum?" Chu Fengmian's voice was extremely relaxed. "I want all of this demon god essence blood." "What? You want all of it?" Su Jin was a little dazed when she heard that. She could not believe what she had just heard. She knew that Chu Fengmian possessed boundless wealth. However, in her imagination, no matter how great Chu Fengmian's wealth was, there would always be a limit. However, it seemed that Chu Fengmian's wealth was simply endless. Chu Fengmian actually wanted all of the demon god essence blood that was worth 200 million 9 cauldron pills. Even a large sect might not be able to consume such a large amount of demon god essence blood. "What? Miss Su Jin, you don't believe me?" Chu Fengmian said casually. With a wave of his hand, 200 million 9 cauldron pills appeared in his hand. This was a long river of spiritual herbs. Countless 9 cauldron pills were already hidden in the void. This number was simply astonishing to the extreme. Good. Young Master Chu is indeed generous. Su Jin's expression was stupefied at first, but she quickly reacted and laughed loudly. 200 million 9 cauldron pills was enough to refine the heaven origin divine pill. Moreover, the demon god essence blood contained demon blood. After being refined and devoured by Chu Fengmian, it would only be hidden in Chu Fengmian's body. At that time, the demon blood would be able to completely control Chu Fengmian. This batch of demon god essence blood belongs to young Master Chu. Su Jin received the 200 million 9 cauldron pills and immediately put them away as she said. "Then, I shall not disturb young Master Chu's cultivation. I shall take my leave first." After Su Jin finished speaking, he directly left. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and swept away all the demon god essence blood. This batch of demon god blood essence was much denser than the blood essence of saints. Chu Fengmian could already feel that the massacre sword principle in his body was beginning to stir. It could not wait to devour the demon god essence blood. Chu Fengmian returned to his room and sat on the ground to devour the endless blood qi in the demon god essence blood. After a long time, Chu Fengmian slowly woke up. His massacre sword principle was only a step away from greater mastery. The 4 limbs of the ancient massacre god's silhouette had been completely condensed. Only the head was left. Once the massacre sword principle was completed, Chu Fengmian's massacre sword principle would enter greater mastery. It's time to see how the refining of the heaven origin divine pill is going. With a thought, Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness immediately spread out and entered the hidden nation. Su Jin was also in the hidden nation. She respectfully offered countless 9 cauldron pills to help the Su family's old ancestor refine the heaven origin divine pill. She was grateful for the reward from the blissful reliance. Chapter 431. The refinement of the Tianyuan spirit pill had reached the final step. Chu Fengmian could already feel the enormous spiritual energy within the pill. Chu Fengmian had never refined the Tianyuan spirit pill in his previous life. This was the first time he had seen it. Indeed, the spiritual energy within was incomparably strong. I wonder how much wealth the Su family's ancestor has spent to refine the Tianyuan spirit pill to such an extent. Chu Fengmian looked at the Tianyuan spirit pill and sneered. The Tianyuan spirit pill would soon belong to him. Chu Fengmian watched as Su Jin threw Chu Fengmian's 9 cauldron pills into the cauldron from afar. Waves of pure spiritual energy gradually refined the Tianyuan spirit pill. The waves of pure spiritual energy contained the power of the battle dragon. Along with the spiritual energy, they quietly fused into the Tianyuan spirit pill. The battle dragon's power was hidden so deeply that the Su family's ancestor did not notice it. The waves of battle dragon's power fused into the Tianyuan spirit pill. Under Chu Fengmian's control, it quietly changed the spiritual energy within the Tianyuan spirit pill. You've schemed against me for half a day to refine the Tianyuan spirit pill. Unfortunately, the Tianyuan spirit pill will belong to me. Chu Fengmian sneered. The battle dragon's power had fused into the Tianyuan spirit pill and was transforming it. The moment the Tianyuan spirit pill was refined, the power of the Tianyuan spirit pill would be completely under Chu Fengmian's control. At that time, all the schemes of the Su family's ancestor would become Chu Fengmian's wedding dress. All the wealth Chu Fengmian had spent so far was for the Tianyuan spirit pill. Moreover, he had obtained the blood essence of countless saints and demonic gods. They were used to refine the massacre sword art. Now, he was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The refinement of the Tianyuan spirit pill is still lacking about 100 million 9 cauldron pills. Chu Fengmian observed and could see that the spiritual energy required to refine the Tianyuan spirit pill was still insufficient. Only 100 million 9 cauldron pills were left. Not good. The refinement of the Tianyuan spirit pill is still incomplete. I still need more pills. At this moment, the Su family's old ancestor suddenly realized what was going on and shouted loudly. Su Jin, go and find the pills. Find 100 million 9 cauldron pills. Just 100 million 9 cauldron pills. This Tianyuan Shin Dan can be completely condensed. The old ancestor of the Su family roared. This Tianyuan spirit pill was already at the last step of refining. If he lacked spiritual energy at this time, all his efforts would be in vain. In order to concoct this Tianyuan spirit pill, he had spent an unimaginable amount of wealth. He could not afford to fail. Yes. Su Jin replied nervously and hurriedly left. She did not dare to bear the wrath of the Su family's old ancestor. 100 million 9 cauldron pills was not a small sum. Chu Fengmian was probably the only one who could easily take out such an amount. Su Jin hurriedly left. At the same time, Chu Fengmian retracted his spiritual sense and sat in his room. Not long after, Su Jin knocked on the door. Oh? What does Miss Su Jin want? Chu Fengmian seemed to be a little surprised as he spoke. He had been waiting here for a long time and knew that Su Jin would definitely come looking for him again. After all, only Chu Fengmian could take out 100 billion 9 cauldron pills in one go. Our Su family has a batch of even higher grade essence blood. I wonder if young Master Chu is interested? It could be seen that Su Jin was extremely anxious at this moment. When he saw Chu Fengmian, he did not hold back and directly spoke to him. What essence blood? Chu Fengmian asked. The essence blood is in this empty ring. Su Jin took out an empty ring and slowly opened it in front of Chu Fengmian. Please be careful. The moment the empty ring was opened, a vat of extremely pure essence blood could be seen. This essence blood was countless times purer than the essence blood of a peak saint. Boom! The moment the empty ring was opened, the vat of essence blood actually erupted with spiritual energy, turning into a supreme blood god and charging over. The power of this vat of blood essence could actually transform into a supreme blood deity. It could be seen how powerful the power of this vat of blood essence was. Su Jin hurriedly closed the empty ring and sealed the supreme blood deity within it. This is the essence blood of a life and death expert? Chu Fengmian's mind was shaken, and his expression was slightly astonished. This was the first time he had seen the essence blood of a life and death expert. This essence blood had passed through a life and death calamity, and its power was extremely pure. Its blood qi also far surpassed that of a peak saint's essence blood by dozens or even hundreds of times. The essence blood of a life and death expert was extremely important to Chu Fengmian. Right now, Chu Fengmian's slaughter sword art was just a step away from major completion. He needed an opportunity, and this life and death expert's essence blood was precisely that opportunity. If he wanted to see his slaughter sword art reach major completion, he had to obtain this life and death expert's essence blood. Not bad. I wonder if young Master Chu is interested? Su Jin looked at Chu Fengmian and said. Seeing the shock on Chu Fengmian's face, she was not surprised at all. The first time she had seen the essence blood of a life and death expert, she had also been startled. Although a life and death expert had fallen, the power of the essence blood left behind was enough to turn into a supreme blood god. From this, one could see how powerful the essence blood of a life and death expert was. Of course I do. Is your Su family really going to sell such a coveted item? Chu Fengmian feigned astonishment and said. Of course. This life and death expert's essence blood is worth 100 billion 9 cauldron pills. If young Master Chu needs it, then it belongs to young Master Chu. Su Jin did not explain and said. This life and death expert's essence blood should not be taken out for sale. However, they were lacking 100 billion 9 cauldron pills, so they could only use it to exchange for 9 cauldron pills. At the very least, Heaven Origin Spirit pills were much more important than this life and death expert's essence blood. 100 billion 9 cauldron pills? Alright. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and took out 100 billion 9 cauldron pills. Without bargaining, he immediately grabbed the spatial ring. Alright. This life and death expert's essence blood is not easy to refine. Young Master Chu, please be careful. After receiving the pills, Su Jin only said a few words before hastily leaving. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also returned to his room. Seeing the life and death expert's essence blood, Chu Fengmian's heart was incomparably excited. His massacre sword art was finally about to reach greater completion. When the time came, he would summon the primordial massacre god to boost his strength. It would be enough to increase Chu Fengmian's strength by several folds. Chu Fengmian strengthened the restrictions and formations in the room. Only then did he slowly pick up the empty ring. He poured his spiritual energy into it and opened it. Chapter 432. The moment the empty ring was opened immediately, the entire room was filled with spiritual energy. Waves of blood qi transformed into a blood wind, engulfing the entire space. The power of this blood god isn't any weaker than that flower-plucking venerable. Han Yueli sensed the power of this blood god and said indifferently, "Not bad. It seems like the master of this blood essence had to be at least at the third layer of life and death realm. Only the blood essence left behind after death can have such power." Chu Fengmian said with a smile. The stronger the power of this blood god, the stronger the power of the blood essence. He wanted to condense his slaughter sword art to the pinnacle. Naturally, the stronger the power of the blood essence, the better. An ant at the wind resistance realm and a piece of trash at the 9th level of the divine force realm want to refine this sovereign? Ridiculous. The blood god opened his mouth and could actually speak human language. The blood essence of a dead life and death realm expert had turned into a blood god with its own consciousness. The blood god opened his mouth and sized up Chu Fengmian. His eyes suddenly revealed a bit of light. Oh? Your body actually has the bloodline of an ancient battle dragon. What a good body! If I seize your body, I can be reborn. It won't be hard for me to reach the peak again in the future. The heavens are helping me. These two trash actually dared to release this lord. Then, this lord will take your life. The blood god laughed again and again. When he saw Chu Fengmian, it was as if he had seen a treasure. His figure moved and immediately grabbed at Chu Fengmian. He wanted to forcibly seize Chu Fengmian's body and let him be reborn. If a supreme blood god like him were to obtain a body, he would be able to be reborn and become a true human. The supreme blood god roared and pounced on Chu Fengmian, intending to take over his body. Han Yueli saw this scene and wanted to take action. However, he was stopped by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian took a step forward and directly won. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's battle dragon's might condensed in his palm. In his body, 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence simultaneously condensed and transformed into a battle dragon claw. Break for me. Crack! The supreme blood god's body began to crumble the moment it came into contact with the battle dragon's claw. Streams of pure blood energy flowed out. The violent collision caused the entire room to be filled with blood. Chu Fengmian had defeated the supreme power of the blood god with a single move. What? You're just an ant in the wind-controlling realm. How can you possibly contend with my strength? The supreme blood god roared in disbelief. Even if he was just a ball of essence blood, he could easily kill a pinnacle saint with his current strength. But now, he was defeated by Chu Fengmian in one move. The overwhelming power of the battle dragon claw was enough to strike fear into the blood god's heart. He couldn't resist it at all. This did not seem like the strength of a wind-controlling realm warrior at all. Even a pinnacle saint would not have such strength. I don't believe that an ant like you can overturn the heavens. The supreme blood god roared. His blood energy suddenly condensed and transformed into a long spear. The long spear was condensed from incomparably pure blood energy. As soon as the long spear was drawn, the world was filled with endless blood energy. The long spear suddenly pierced toward Chu Fengmian. The endless power contained in it even tore through the space. It turned into a long blood-red rainbow. The spear thrust out as if it was going to pierce through everything in the world. Break for me. Chu Fengmian once again condensed the power of 1,296 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence and transformed them into the battle dragon claw. At the same time, the shadow of the ancient god of massacre appeared behind Chu Fengmian. The power of the ancient god of massacre was added to the battle dragon claw. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw became countless times more terrifying. Boom! 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 As the claw fell, the blood energy long spear was instantly broken and completely destroyed. Chu Fengmian also devoured the endless power within and integrated it into the shadow of the ancient god of massacre. The shadow of the ancient god of massacre. Seeing the shadow of the ancient god of massacre behind Chu Fengmian, the supreme blood god's face suddenly changed. He suddenly moved, turned into a stream of blood energy, and fled out of the door. He had already sensed that Chu Fengmian's power was far from what he could deal with. He immediately planned to leave. However, how could Chu Fengmian give this supreme blood god a chance? His feet moved, and he arrived in front of the door. The scarlet flame sword suddenly appeared in his hand. With a flash of the sword's edge, he unleashed all his killing sword arts. Under the boundless murderous intent, the supreme blood god was slain thoroughly. In the air, it turned into a vat of life and death expert's blood essence. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and swallowed it all. An endless stream of blood energy was integrated into Chu Fengmian's body. Although he had devoured a lot of saints' blood essence and demon gods' blood essence, it was completely different from the blood essence of a life and death expert. A life and death expert who had survived the great calamity was no longer the same as a saint. His blood essence was hundreds of times more powerful than a saint's blood essence. These masses of blood energy were all devoured by Chu Fengmian and condensed into the primordial slaughter god's shadow. This primordial slaughter god's shadow began to gradually transform. Bang! The last part, the head of the primordial slaughter god's shadow, was completely condensed. The moment the head was fully condensed, the primordial slaughter god's shadow seemed to have come alive. It was as magical as coming back from the dead. In terms of power, it was on a completely different level from before. Primordial slaughter god's power. Buff. Chu Fengmian's expression changed as he coldly shouted. The primordial slaughter god's shadow completely integrated into Chu Fengmian's body. Immediately, Chu Fengmian's power began to rise. Chu Fengmian's every move now contained endless killing intent. It was as if Chu Fengmian was a real supreme slaughter god. It was simply terrifying to the extreme. "Are you really Chu Fengmian?" Han Yueli couldn't help but ask from the side. Looking at Chu Fengmian's current appearance, it was as if his body was occupied by a slaughter god. Whether it was his temperament or his power, they were completely different. "Of course it's me," Chu Fengmian softly replied. Suddenly, his mind moved. Slaughter intent, suppress. The endless killing intent on Chu Fengmian's body suddenly disappeared without a trace. From a supreme slaughter god, he turned back into an ordinary Chu Fengmian. Chapter 433. The change in Chu Fengmian's body happened in an instant. From the ancient god of slaughter, he turned back into the ordinary Chu Fengmian. However, the power in Chu Fengmian's body did not decrease. Instead, it seemed to be even purer than before. There was a feeling of returning to one's natural state. The worst thing about the massacre sword principle is that the user will lose himself and fall into an endless massacre. However, to me, it is far from being able to affect me, Chu Fengmian said confidently. As a person who had lived 2 lives, his will was extremely firm. Many people would go crazy after cultivating this slaughtering sword art to great success. Their bodies would be occupied by the ancient god of slaughter, and they would become madmen who only knew how to kill. However, Chu Fengmian's body now had 2 other powers, the battle dragon power and the creation power. The 3 powers restrained each other. Chu Fengmian swept away the killing intent. He only inherited the power of the ancient god of slaughter, but not the killing intent. Even so, Chu Fengmian was unable to perfectly unleash the power of the slaughtering sword art. He could only unleash 80% of it. It was said that the ancient god of slaughter had experienced countless sufferings in the world. He went crazy and wanted to kill everything in the world. His monstrous killing intent was not something that Chu Fengmian could understand. Therefore, Chu Fengmian was unable to completely inherit his slaughtering sword art. However, Chu Fengmian was a sword Dao grandmaster. Furthermore, he had the battle dragon bloodline and the creation power in his body. He could use 80% of the slaughtering sword art's power by force. That was already enough. If Chu Fengmian were to forcefully comprehend the killing intent of the ancient god of slaughter, he would be affected by the killing intent and become a madman who only knew how to kill. I'm afraid this slaughtering sword art is incomparably dangerous. You have to be careful, Han Yueli said with concern. When Chu Fengmian's killing intent burst out, she thought that Chu Fengmian was really possessed by the ancient god of slaughter and lost himself in it. After all, Han Yueli had already felt the power of the slaughtering sword art from Chu Fengmian. Even she would be lost in the slaughtering sword art if she were to cultivate it to great success. The strength of the ancient god of massacre was not something they could contend against. It doesn't matter. Although this massacre sword art is able to summon the ancient massacre god's shadow, the ancient massacre god has already fallen. This shadow is just the condensation of his strength. Chu Fengmian said calmly. As long as I suppress the murderous intent within it, this power will belong to me. Since my slaughter sword art has reached greater completion, that side should be about the same as well. The moment Chu Fengmian spoke, his figure disappeared from the room. Chu Fengmian concealed his figure and passed through the Su family in an instant. The Su family's countless restrictions were nothing before Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian rushed towards the secret kingdom. In a flash, he arrived at the secret kingdom. Tianyuan Shendan. The refinement is finally about to be completed. There were two people in the hidden nation. They were Su Jin and the ancestor of the Su family. At this moment, waves of pure medicinal power had already spread out from within the pill furnace. Just by smelling this faint medicinal fragrance, it was enough to make one feel both physically and mentally comfortable. That's right. I've refined the Tianyuan Shendan. This old man's strength is enough to take another step forward. The ancestor of the Su family looked at the Tianyuan Shendan with a face full of excitement. His cultivation level had been stuck at this level for a long time. Now, he could finally make a breakthrough. Su Jin said respectfully from the side. Congratulations, ancestor. The ancestor of the Su family glanced at Su Jin and said, Su Jin, you've done well in this matter. You've obtained the 9 cauldron pills from those 3 people. Without this batch of wealth, I'm afraid that this Tianyuan Shendan might not be able to be refined. The position of the next head of the Su family will belong to you. Thank you, ancestor. Su Jin hurriedly thanked the ancestor. It's my honor to be able to contribute to the family. Yes, the 3 people you brought this time have already contributed greatly. You don't have to decline. Since the 3 of them have so much wealth, they must have obtained great treasures. The ancestor of the Su family's eyes flickered as he suddenly said, After I refine this Tianyuan Shendan, I'll kill all 3 of them and refine their souls. Then I'll see how much fortune they've obtained. The ancestor of the Su family's words were full of killing intent. An ordinary man's wealth was his own ruin. With so much wealth, the ancestor of the Su family's heart was filled with killing intent. Now that he had broken through, the first thing he would do was kill Chu Fengmian and the other 2 and seize all the fortune from them. The Tianyuan Shendan is about to be refined. The ancestor of the Su family, a life and death expert, had an excited expression on his face like a child. This Tianyuan Shendan was the condensation of his endless blood, sweat, and tears. It had inherited all of his wishes. If he failed this time, he would never be able to refine it a second time. The shaking of the cauldron became more and more intense. The energy erupting from the cauldron was even greater than when 2 experts clashed. The ancestor of the Su family continuously controlled the energy to stabilize the cauldron. In the end, the energy of the cauldron gradually began to ease. Within the cauldron, countless medicinal energies were emitted. These medicinal energies actually condensed into the shape of dragons. Medicinal energy dragon. What a Tianyuan Shendan! It's actually enough to transform the medicinal energies into dragons. This is a natural phenomenon. This Tianyuan Shendan is about to be refined. The ancestor of the Su family laughed heartily as he saw this scene. Medicinal energy dragon and a natural phenomenon. This not only meant that the Tianyuan Shendan was about to be refined, but it also represented the profoundness of the Tianyuan Shendan. This was a phenomenon that would only appear when a peak-grade heavenly pill was about to be refined. Within the cauldron, the last bit of 9 cauldron pill was gradually being burned away. The rising medicinal energies within also gradually calmed down. Soon after, a burst of golden light burst out. When this golden light appeared, the cauldron suddenly stopped. Within it, boundless spiritual energy surged out. The pill is complete. The ancestor of the Su family laughed heartily as he saw the pill being refined. Suddenly, a pill the size of a longan flew out of the pill furnace. This longan-sized pill was covered with countless veins. These veins were the medicinal veins. Every single one of these veins represented a different kind of energy. On this Tianyuan Shundan, there were no less than 1,000 veins. It was simply the king of pills. Quickly, come here. The moment the ancestor of the Su family saw the Tianyuan Shundan appear, he hurriedly extended his hand to grab it. However, in practically an instant, the Tianyuan Shundan seemed to have gained a consciousness of its own. It broke through the spiritual energy of the ancestor of the Su family and flew out. Chapter 434. All of a sudden, the heavenly essence spirit pill erupted with a burst of power. It broke through the Su family's old ancestor's spiritual energy seal and shot out into the endless void. What's going on? Could it be that the heavenly essence spirit pill has developed a consciousness and is trying to escape? When the Su family's old ancestor saw this scene, his face changed drastically. With a shift of his body, he charged into the void and chased after the heavenly essence spirit pill. This sudden turn of events was something that he had not expected at all. Logically speaking, the heavenly essence spirit pill had just been refined. Even if it had a strong spiritual energy, it was still a blank piece of paper. It should not know how to resist. However, he did not have the luxury of time to think so much. With a shift of his body, he entered the void and unleashed all of his spiritual energy as he chased after the heavenly essence spirit pill. This heavenly essence spirit pill was something that he had spent a lot of effort to refine. If the heavenly essence spirit pill were to escape on its own, he would probably die from anger. The Su family's old ancestor's spiritual energy erupted as he pushed his escape light to the limit and chased after the heavenly essence spirit pill. However, the heavenly essence spirit pill did not look like a newly refined spiritual pill. Not only did it possess an extremely strong power, but it also knew how to resist. The Su family's old ancestor tried to capture the heavenly essence spirit pill, but in the end, he failed at the last step. The heavenly essence spirit pill was escaping. The heavenly essence spirit pill seemed to have a consciousness of its own as it shuttled through the void, preventing the Su family's old ancestor from catching it. Damn it! How could the heavenly essence spirit pill have such a consciousness? The Su family's old ancestor was terrified. He was only a step away from a breakthrough. But now, the heavenly essence spirit pill had escaped. This old man doesn't believe that a mere spirit pill can escape from this old man's grasp. The Su family's old ancestor roared as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He burned his essence blood and pushed his strength to the limit as he chased after the heavenly essence spirit pill. After traveling through the void for an unknown amount of time, the Su family's old ancestor finally caught up. Heaven and Earth Seal. The Su family's old ancestor waved his hand and the surrounding void was immediately sealed. The heavenly essence spirit pill was also sealed within it. Seeing this scene, the Su family's old ancestor's expression finally calmed down. He reached for the heavenly essence spirit pill. Rumble! A ferocious sound suddenly reverberated throughout the entire void. A giant arm broke through the seal of the heavens and earth and grabbed at the heavenly essence spirit pill. When the Tianyuan spirit pill caught sight of this gigantic arm, it did not resist at all. Instead, it was overjoyed as it was grabbed by this gigantic arm. It caused the Su family old ancestor to pounce on empty air. What happened? Who? The Su family's old ancestor. Who dares to plot against me? His shock turned into anger. This Tianyuan Shundan, the Tianyuan Shundan that he had painstakingly refined, had been snatched away just like that. A figure suddenly appeared in the void. This heavenly essence spirit pill. Even I couldn't refine it. It seems that I have to thank you for allowing me to obtain this heavenly essence spirit pill. It was Chu Fengmian. He had been controlling the heavenly essence spirit pill to evade the Su family's old ancestor's pursuit. In the end, he had lured him to the depths of the void. Chu Fengmian. When the Su family's old ancestor saw Chu Fengmian, his eyes were filled with disbelief. The person who had schemed against him was actually Chu Fengmian, who was nothing more than an ant in his eyes. He had originally planned to deal with Chu Fengmian after refining the Heavenly Essence Spirit Pill. He never imagined that he would fall into Chu Fengmian's trap. The changes to the Heavenly Essence Spirit Pill were definitely related to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, how could it be you? How could an ant like you scheme against me? The Su family's old ancestor shouted in disbelief. He knew that he had been schemed against. However, he never imagined that he would be schemed against by an ant who had yet to become a saint. He was a life and death expert. In his eyes, a wind-controlling realm martial artist was nothing more than an ant that could be easily squashed. Chu Fengmian looked at the Su family's old ancestor and sneered. That's right. Of course it's me. Did you think that your scheme was flawless? Did you think that I couldn't see through it? Today, the Heavenly Essence Spirit Pill will be mine. Moreover, your life will also be mine. Chu Fengmian looked at the Su family's old ancestor and said without any trace of politeness, Since your Su family dared to scheme against me, you can only blame yourselves for everything that happened today. Arrogant Junior. A mere wind-controlling realm ant dares to speak such nonsense. So what if you succeed in your plan? This old man will kill you. I can still obtain the Heavenly Essence Spirit Pill. The Su family's old ancestor looked at Chu Fengmian with killing intent surging in his eyes. He suddenly attacked. During the conversation just now, the Su family's old ancestor had secretly gathered a boundless amount of spiritual energy. All of a sudden, the surrounding space solidified and squeezed toward Chu Fengmian. So what if you obtained the Heavenly Essence Spirit Pill? Today you will still die. Great spatial oppression. Under the Su family's old ancestor's power, the surrounding space began to be controlled. Layer by layer, it pressed down on Chu Fengmian. This was the method of a life and death expert. Even space itself was their weapon. This method of spatial oppression could instantly kill a peak saint expert. Now, the Su family's old ancestor had used his full strength to thoroughly exterminate Chu Fengmian. With your realm, you can't even see through my true strength. Yet, you still want to deal with me? Chu Fengmian looked at the Su family's old ancestor and laughed. Suddenly, the primordial slaughter god's shadow appeared behind Chu Fengmian. The moment the primordial slaughter god's shadow appeared, the surrounding space instantly shattered. The boundless energy pressing down on Chu Fengmian shattered before it could even touch him. An enormous power swept through the entire void. Even the Su family's old ancestor was sent flying. How is this possible? Your realm is only at the peak of wind-controlling realm. How can you possess such a powerful strength? This is the primordial slaughter god. You can actually summon the primordial slaughter god? The Su family's old ancestor's eyes widened. He stared at Chu Fengmian, not daring to blink. He couldn't believe the scene before his eyes. Thank you for the tip. Chapter 435. With one move, the Su family's old ancestor was actually forced to retreat. Even the Su family's old ancestor didn't dare to believe this scene. What kind of person was the Su family's old ancestor? He was one of the strongest existences in the Xiandou nation, a second-layer life and death expert. He was the apex of the colossus that was the Su family. He was an illustrious figure who had already crossed the great calamity of life and death, and was a near-immortal existence. Bastard! You've actually concealed your strength. The Su family's old ancestor, who was sent flying, immediately rushed over. His hair stood on end as boundless fury erupted from him. Being able to send him flying with one move, the Su family's old ancestor didn't believe that Chu Fengmian was really at the peak of the wind-resisting realm. He was a life and death expert. How could a peak wind-resisting realm martial artist send him flying? There was only one possibility. Chu Fengmian had concealed his strength. So what if you've concealed your strength? This old man can see that you haven't stepped into the life and death realm yet. At most, you're a well-known figure among saints. Heaven's blood tears. The Su family's old ancestor furiously roared. Suddenly, blood rain filled the sky. Every drop of blood rain contained a boundless demonic power. If it landed on a martial artist's body, it would directly burn their body, or even burn them to death. This was their Su family's demonic skill. Once the blood rain appeared, heaven and earth would change color, and it was enough to destroy a city. However, Chu Fengmian's face was calm to the extreme. Facing the blood rain, his expression didn't have the slightest trace of worry. Chu Fengmian's feet moved, and his figure directly entered the blood rain, charging towards the Su family's old ancestor. The drops of blood rain containing boundless demonic power were actually directly dissolved when they were about to land on Chu Fengmian's body. Not a single drop of blood rain could actually land on Chu Fengmian's body. Just like that, Chu Fengmian swaggered into the blood rain. Under the Su family's old ancestor's incredulous gaze, Chu Fengmian arrived before him in an instant. Impossible! Seeing Chu Fengmian walk into the blood rain without the slightest effect, the old ancestor's eyes revealed a terrified expression, and he almost fainted. This blood rain was something that even life and death experts would have to be cautious when dealing with. Chu Fengmian was actually able to see it as nothing. This was simply unbelievable to him. He observed with confidence and found that the blood rain was dissolved by the ancient war god's shadow behind Chu Fengmian. These drops of blood rain all became Chu Fengmian's power and were all devoured by the ancient god of slaughter behind Chu Fengmian. The Su family's demonic arts were completely restrained by the ancient god of slaughter behind Chu Fengmian. Damn it! The old ancestor of the Su family cursed. The reason why Chu Fengmian's sword of slaughter was because the Su family had sold Chu Fengmian so much sage and demon god blood essence. Now, they were the ones who were at a disadvantage. However, when the Su family patriarch sensed the power of the devil blood in Chu Fengmian's body, he suddenly sneered. So what if his massacre sword art had reached the great accomplishment stage? Once his demon blood was activated, Chu Fengmian would be under his control. While the Su family's ancestor was pondering, Chu Fengmian arrived in front of him. Get over here! Chu Fengmian grabbed with his hand and activated his spiritual energy, transforming it into a giant hand made of spiritual energy. Right in front of the Su family's ancestor, he suddenly grabbed at him. With a grab, Chu Fengmian activated the 1,296 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence in his body, instantly transforming them into an incomparably huge war dragon claw. This claw was simply terrifying to the extreme. Kid, your strength is indeed not bad. Unfortunately, you're still a little too inexperienced. The Su family's ancestor looked at Chu Fengmian and suddenly laughed with a gloomy expression. Do you think the sage and demon god blood essence of our Su family are so easy to obtain? Plant the devil blood. Activate them all for me. As the Su family's ancestor roared, all the devil blood in Chu Fengmian's body was suddenly activated. When he sensed the devil blood in Chu Fengmian's body being activated, the Su family's ancestor's eyes were filled with a sneer and greed. At such a young age, Chu Fengmian already possessed such astonishing wealth and strength. He must have had an extremely great fortuitous encounter. By killing Chu Fengmian today, the Su family's ancestor would not only be able to take back the Heaven Origin Spirit Pill, but also obtain the fortuitous encounter on Chu Fengmian's body. Ha 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 ha, kid, it's too late for you to kneel and beg for mercy now. Your body will be controlled by the devil blood, and you'll completely submit to me and become my slave. The Su family's ancestor laughed repeatedly. From his expression, it seemed like victory was already in his grasp. He extended his hand and pointed at Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, he activated his spiritual energy and shouted loudly. Kneel. The moment he shouted those two words, Chu Fengmian's body seemed to be affected by an incomparably great power, making him want to kneel. The power of the devil blood in Chu Fengmian's body was completely activated by the Su family's ancestor. He wanted to seize Chu Fengmian's body. However, in the next moment, the scene that he had imagined did not occur. Chu Fengmian was still standing in the same place, completely unharmed. Even from the expression on Chu Fengmian's face, one could see a hint of mockery. It even seemed like he was toying with Chu Fengmian. "What's going on? You clearly have the power of the devil blood in your body. How can you not be under my control?" The Su family's ancestor was stunned. He pointed at Chu Fengmian, his eyes filled with disbelief as he roared madly in his heart. He could not understand how Chu Fengmian was able to neutralize his devil blood. As long as there was a certain amount of devil blood in a cultivator's body, even the most powerful cultivator would not be able to completely neutralize it. This was because the devil blood would fuse into a person's bloodline. Unless one crippled their own bloodline, they would never be able to get rid of it. In his opinion, victory was already in his grasp. However, the changes before his eyes were completely unimaginable. "Old man, do you really think that your little devil blood can control me?" Chu Fengmian looked at the Su family's ancestor with disdain in his eyes. "When I was dealing with those old demons in Nine Demon City, who knows where you were? It's just a little devil blood. If I want to refine it, I can do it in an instant." As Chu Fengmian spoke, he stood in front of the Su family's ancestor. The spiritual energy in his body suddenly condensed, and the power of the battle dragon suppressed the devil blood. In an instant, the power of the devil blood was completely dissipated. It turned into pure spiritual energy and fused into Chu Fengmian's body, becoming his nourishment. Thank you for Li Yuyu's reward. Chapter 436. Now, he was doing it right in front of the Su family's old ancestor. Chu Fengmian urged his spiritual power to refine and devour the demonic blood. Su family's old ancestor roared madly in his heart as he watched Chu Fengmian refine the demonic blood. He simply couldn't imagine such a scene. He had never failed to use this demonic blood against an enemy before. No matter how powerful a martial artist was, if they were implanted with the demonic blood, they would be controlled. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't affected by the demonic blood at all. Instead, he was able to refine and devour the demonic blood. This was simply unbelievable. I've never heard of such a method. This person isn't human anymore. Su family's old ancestor was nearly scared to death. All his means were meaningless in front of Chu Fengmian, especially refining the demonic blood. Was this something a human could do? Even the geniuses of North Sea Academy might not necessarily be able to do this. Use my blood as a sacrifice. Escape 1,000 li. Su family's old ancestor didn't hesitate in the slightest as he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. The blood wrapped around Su family's old ancestor, and he immediately turned into a blood-colored light as he planned to escape. He no longer had any intention of fighting Chu Fengmian. He made a prompt decision to escape. However, how could it be so easy to escape? After all, Su family's old ancestor was a life and death expert. The reason why Chu Fengmian was able to defeat him was mostly because Chu Fengmian had refined the massacre sword art to great success. If Su family's old ancestor escaped, he would be able to find several life and death experts to besiege Chu Fengmian. After all, Chu Fengmian hadn't truly stepped into the divine power realm. Becoming a saint was still very troublesome. Since Chu Fengmian was going to make a move today, he wouldn't give Su family's old ancestor any chance. Massacre sword art. Blood prison cage. Chu Fengmian pulled out the scarlet flame sword. Boundless blood chi condensed on the sword's edge. These streams of bloody aura flew along with the sword edge and suddenly transformed into a cage. This cage was 100 li wide. Su family's old ancestor hadn't left yet. He was completely trapped in this cage. Being sealed by the blood prison cage, Su family's old ancestor's face immediately turned frantic. With nowhere to run, he no longer had any thoughts of running away. After all, he was a life and death expert, and his mind was extremely firm. Once he lost the thought of running away, his entire face was filled with anger. "Little bastard! Do you really want to fight me to the death? Where it is possible to make mistakes, one should forgive them. Even if we fight to the death today, you won't get any benefits." The Su family's ancestor calmed down, looked at Chu Fengmian and slowly spoke. "How about we bury the hatchet? Don't you want the North Sea Academy's qualification? Let's forget about today's matter and I'll give you 3 spots for the North Mang Academy's examination. How about it?" "Oh!" Hearing the Su family's ancestor's words, Chu Fengmian sneered. The mockery in his eyes was even more unrestrained. There was no enmity between Chu Fengmian and the Su family. From the very beginning, the Su family did not want to give Chu Fengmian any benefit. Instead, they wanted to take advantage of Chu Fengmian's boundless wealth. He even wanted to use the demon blood to completely control Chu Fengmian. Now, he wanted to bury the hatchet with a single sentence. It was simply laughable. "Old man, you've schemed against me for so long, and now you want to bury the hatchet with a single sentence? Is there such a good thing?" The corner of Chu Fengmian's mouth revealed a somewhat strange smile. "However, seeing that you still have some strength, I can give you a chance. How about I let you live?" "What chance?" The Su family's ancestor was originally furious, but when he heard Chu Fengmian's next sentence, his expression changed. He couldn't help but feel somewhat pleased. Indeed, Chu Fengmian didn't dare to fight to the death with him. If a life and death expert really wanted to set up a life and death struggle, it would be an extremely frightening matter. Today, he had suffered a huge loss, so he didn't want to have any conflict with Chu Fengmian. However, once he recovered his strength and found a few life and death experts, he could still kill Chu Fengmian. After all, Chu Fengmian had such a fortuitous encounter and boundless wealth. There were many people who wanted to kill Chu Fengmian. Such a fortuitous encounter was something everyone wanted. "You will submit to me and become my slave." Chu Fengmian looked at the Su family's ancestor and sneered. "I can spare your life, and even let you continue to be the Su family's ancestor. I can even lend you a hand and help you break through your cultivation. Dream on." When the Su family's ancestor heard the first sentence, his face turned red from anger. After hearing all this, the anger in his heart could no longer be suppressed. In his eyes, Chu Fengmian was just a lucky junior who had a fortuitous encounter. He didn't even have the same status as him. Even if he wanted to make peace with Chu Fengmian, he was just feigning civility. The moment he recovered his strength, he would find someone to kill Chu Fengmian. A life and death expert like him was a pinnacle expert. Asking him to submit, especially to a junior, was simply an unparalleled humiliation. No matter what, he wouldn't agree. "Junior! Arrogant!" the Su family's ancestor furiously shouted. Chu Fengmian's words made him feel endless humiliation. "A junior like you dares to speak such arrogant words? Arrogant words? I'm just giving you a chance. Since you don't want it, you can die." Chu Fengmian coldly snorted, showing no mercy. If a life and death expert were to become his slave, it would indeed be quite convenient. There would be many benefits. However, a dead life and death expert would still be useful to Chu Fengmian. Since the Su family's ancestor didn't want to live, he could only die. "You're simply condescending and arrogant to the extreme," the Su family's ancestor furiously said. "Do you really think that my Su family has no other means? Die for me." As soon as his voice fell, the Su family's ancestor suddenly attacked. His figure expanded rapidly, turning into an enormous figure over 1,000 zhang tall. Due to his body's swelling, the Su family's ancestor's strength also became boundless. Suddenly, a fist smashed towards Chu Fengmian. This fist was about to shatter the space. Since Chu Fengmian could restrain his blood qi, the Su family's ancestor changed his mind and condensed all the blood qi into his body, turning it into his strength. With absolute power, he wanted to crush Chu Fengmian to death. Because of this power, an endless hurricane pressed down on Chu Fengmian's body, making it impossible for him to dodge. Chu Fengmian stood where he was. Seeing the fist coming, he sneered in his heart. Chapter 437. The sword in Chu Fengmian's hand slowly moved. The tip of the sword in his hand turned blood-red as he activated his massacre sword art. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned red in an instant. It was definitely the color of blood. Exterminate! The tip of the sword descended. The moment the sword descended, the entire horizon turned blood-red. The descent of the sword seemed to have turned the entire world into a purgatory. It was a true massacre sword. After Chu Fengmian's massacre sword art reached great completion, this was the first time he attacked. Endless blood-red light flashed. The body of the Su family's old ancestor began to shatter bit by bit under the sword. Boom! 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 The entire void fell into an endless rumble. The body of the Su family's old ancestor was completely shattered by the massacre sword art. The body of the Su family's old ancestor abruptly shattered in the void, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and collected the cloud of blood mist, fusing it with the primordial massacre god's phantom behind him. Although the primordial massacre god's phantom had reached great completion, the more essence blood it absorbed, the more powerful it would become. Just now, Chu Fengmian's sword had completely annihilated the Su family's old ancestor. The might of the massacre sword art could be seen at a glance. Let's go. With a thought, Chu Fengmian directly returned to the Su family. He had already obtained the Heaven Origin Spirit Pill. Chu Fengmian had come to the Su family for the qualification to enter the Northern Sea Academy. The Su family had schemed against Chu Fengmian for a long time, but in the end, Chu Fengmian had obtained the Heaven Origin Spirit Pill. This was a great harvest. However, Chu Fengmian didn't plan to consume the Heaven Origin Spirit Pill right now. After all, he didn't have 100% confidence that he could break through the divine power realm and become a saint if he rashly consumed it. Chu Fengmian could feel that his divine power realm bottleneck was much more terrifying than the majority of people's life and death calamities. It might even trigger a heavenly tribulation. Chu Fengmian had to be careful. When a person stepped into the life and death realm, it was because they were too heaven-defying. Their strength would be envied by the heavens, and a life and death calamity would descend upon them. Chu Fengmian's current strength had already reached the second layer of life and death realm. Once he chose to break through to the divine force realm, the heavens would definitely send down a heavenly tribulation. Therefore, Chu Fengmian would not choose to break through rashly unless he had absolute confidence. He put away the Heavenly Origin Spirit Pill and returned to the Su family. Chu Fengmian silently returned to the Su family without being detected by anyone. Chu Fengmian, you're finally back. In the room, Han Yueli was relieved to see Chu Fengmian return. She had naturally guessed that Chu Fengmian had left to deal with the Su family's ancestor. How is it? Are you all right? Of course. Chu Fengmian smiled. With a move of his palm, the heavenly Yuanshan pill appeared in his hand. The moment the Tianyuan divine pill appeared, the entire room was filled with a medicinal fragrance. Even Tuoba Ding, who was cultivating nearby, woke up when he smelled the medicinal fragrance. What kind of pill is this? How can there be such a pure medicinal fragrance? Just smelling it makes my body feel much more relaxed. Tuoba Ding said in astonishment. This medicinal pill was definitely of a higher grade than any medicinal pill he had ever seen. This is the Heavenly Yuanshan pill? Han Yueli looked at the Heavenly Yuanshan pill in Chu Fengmian's hand and couldn't help but cry out in surprise. She knew that the Su family's ancestor was refining the Heavenly Yuanshan pill. However, this was the first time she had seen it. Heavenly Yuanshan pill? The legendary heavenly Yuanshan pill that could allow a life and death expert to break through a level? Hearing this name, Tuoba Ding couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This name was extremely famous. It was likely that everyone knew about it. This heavenly Yuanshan pill was a pill close to the legendary level. Even he was seeing it for the first time. That's right. This is the heavenly Yuanshan pill. Chu Fengmian sneered and said. The Su family's people wanted to deal with me. They were simply courting death. Now that the Su family's ancestor is dead, let's see how they plan to scheme against me. Chu Fengmian said softly. Let's go. It's time to settle the score with the Su family. As he spoke, Chu Fengmian's figure disappeared from where he stood. Han Yueli and Tuoba Ding followed closely behind Chu Fengmian. Su family, inside the main hall, Su family's family head and Su Jin were inside. Their faces were filled with anxiety. What's going on? How could the heavenly Yuanshan pill refined by the old ancestor suddenly disappear? Su family's family head looked at Su Jin and said with a frown. So much time has passed. Why hasn't the old ancestor returned yet? Su Jin said. I don't know. The moment the heavenly Yuanshan pill was refined, it broke through space and left. No one knows where it went. The old ancestor should still be chasing after the heavenly Yuanshan pill. He should return soon. There's no need to wait. It's impossible for your old ancestor to return. A voice suddenly sounded from the main hall. 3 figures appeared in the main hall at the same time. The countless restrictions and formations around the main hall were completely useless. They were directly broken through. Who is it? Su family's family head and Su Jin roared at the same time and looked toward the source of the voice. It was only then that they were able to clearly see who the 3 people were. So it's young Master Chu. May I know the meaning behind young Master Chu's words? Seeing Chu Fengmian's sudden appearance, the Su family's family head and Su Jin both revealed nervous expressions. It was Su Jin who was the first to speak. This is the main hall. It is a forbidden area of our Su family. Everyone, please leave first. If there's anything you need, we can chat again tomorrow. You're stalling for time? Are you planning to wait for the return of your old ancestor? Unfortunately, your old ancestor will never return. Chu Fengmian spoke with an ice-cold expression after hearing Su Jin's words. The people from the Su family had schemed against him for so long. It was finally time for him to lay all his cards on the table. What does young Master Chu mean by that? This little girl doesn't understand. However, today is indeed inconvenient. If young Master Chu has something to discuss, please come back tomorrow. Su Jin looked at Chu Fengmian and said. Su Jin, you don't have to pretend anymore. Aren't you all waiting for that old codger to return so that you can kill us? Chu Fengmian looked at Su Jin and laughed loudly. However, that old codger has already died in the void. Even if we wait until tomorrow, that old codger will not be able to return. Impudent! Chu Fengmian, even if you're an honored guest of our Su family, you still cannot insult our old ancestor today. The Su family's family head shouted furiously. This is our Su family's forbidden area. Leave immediately. Chapter 438. Su Wuqi, there's no need for you to make a fuss here. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted when he heard the Su family's family head's words. You can't escape the responsibility of scheming against this Chu. Chu Fengmian. You. Hearing Chu Fengmian directly address him by name, the Su family's family head couldn't help but become furious. He was the Su family's family head. In the Xiandou nation, many life and death experts had to give him face. Now that he was directly addressed by a person of the younger generation, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of anger on his face. However, apart from anger, there was also a trace of astonishment in Su Wuqi's heart. Judging from Chu Fengmian's words, it seemed as if he already knew about their scheme against him. What? Did you think that I wouldn't know about your scheme against this Chu? Seeing the astonishment in Su Wuqi's eyes, Chu Fengmian sneered. He moved his finger, and a drop of demon blood appeared on his fingertip. Seeing the drop of demon blood, Su Wuqi and Su Jin couldn't help but glance at each other. Killing intent could be seen in the eyes of the two of them. It seemed that Chu Fengmian had indeed already known about their scheme. "Brat, since you already know about it, this old man won't bother with superfluous words with you today." Looking at Chu Fengmian, Su Wuqi no longer bothered to explain. He coldly snorted. "We never intended to give you the Northern Sea Academy's qualification quota. If you're sensible, obediently hand over the Sumeru space right now. Hand over all of your wealth, and we can still spare your life today." "That's right. Chu Fengmian, so what if you've seen through our scheme today? Obediently handing over your wealth is the only way for you to live." Su Jin looked at Chu Fengmian. The smile on his face was no longer there. Instead, it had turned into a sneer. His eyes were filled with greed as he looked at Chu Fengmian. "This is the Su family. Even if you know about it, do you think that you'll be able to leave here alive?" Su Jin coldly snorted. Suddenly, he sent out a burst of spiritual energy. Immediately, countless restrictions appeared in the palace. The restrictions appeared one after another, trapping Chu Fengmian, Su Jin and Su Jin within. This restriction had been prepared in advance. As soon as the restriction appeared, it completely enveloped Chu Fengmian and the other two. As long as Su Jin willed it, the restriction would activate and kill Chu Fengmian and the other two. Su Jin looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed. "Chu Fengmian, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down obediently and submit to me. Become my dog and I'll let you live. What do you think?" Chu Fengmian looked at Su Jin and said slowly. "Su Jin, I saved your life once. Why are you treating me like this? Naive little guy, there is no such thing as kindness in the world of martial arts. So what if you saved me? That's just your stupidity." Su Jin looked at Chu Fengmian and shook his head. His eyes were filled with disdain as he sneered. "In your next life, you should see things clearly. Don't be so stupid." The moment Su Jin spoke, he was already secretly circulating his spiritual power. In an instant, the surrounding restriction was activated. Boundless spiritual power abruptly pressed down on Chu Fengmian. This power seemed to want to suppress Chu Fengmian. It was unknown how long this restriction had been set up. It was personally set up by Su family's ancestor. It could even suppress a first-level life and death realm martial artist. "Brat, in your next life, remember not to be so stupid." Su Jin sneered as he glanced at Chu Fengmian. "Is that so? Seems like you really think that you can defeat me?" Chu Fengmian suddenly laughed and glanced at Su Wuqi and Su Jin. His gaze was as though he was looking at two dead men. "Did you think that I dared to come here without making any preparations? Originally, I wanted to give your Su family a chance, but now your Su family's destruction is already predetermined. Slaughter sword art. Ancient slaughter god." With a thought, Chu Fengmian's slaughter sword art suddenly erupted. The ancient slaughter god's silhouette suddenly appeared on Chu Fengmian's body. His murderous intent burst out from his body without concealing it at all. His eyes turned bloodshot, as if an ancient god of slaughter had suddenly arrived. Boundless killing intent gushed out from Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's aura was completely different from before. It was as if an ancient slaughter god had suddenly descended. You. How is this possible?" Su Wuqi and Su Jin were shocked when they saw the sudden change on Chu Fengmian's body. They originally thought that they would definitely defeat Chu Fengmian this time. But they didn't expect that Chu Fengmian's body was actually hiding such a change. "You were actually hiding your strength. This kind of strength. So, you've been hiding your strength from the beginning to scheme against our Su family." Su Wuqi looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. "Wild ambition. It's finally revealed. You hid your strength and came to our Su family. You must be up to no good. But you're just a wind-resisting realm brat. So what if your strength is strange? I don't believe that you can contend against us." We've already set up a restriction. A mere wind-resisting realm brat can forget about overturning the heavens. The Su family's ancestor shouted angrily. With a thought, a surge of energy was added to the restriction. Once this restriction was activated, it immediately transformed into 3 golden longswords. These 3 golden longswords were all genuine Earth-level spiritual artifacts. Amidst the countless seals, the Su family had fused 3 Earth-grade spiritual artifacts into them. Once activated, the 3 golden swords shot out at the same time and pierced toward Chufengmian. Brat, even if you've been hiding your strength, you're still no match for us. The Su family's ancestor shouted angrily. The moment he activated the restriction, he also released all of his strength. Boundless blood chi condensed on his body and transformed into a blood chi spear. Blood chi spear. Blood-breaking heaven's secret. The spear contained boundless blood chi and countless resentful spirits roared within it. It was unknown how many cultivators it had killed to condense such a spear. Su Jin also made her move. A blood-red whip appeared in her hand. She immediately lashed out at Chufengmian with her whip. Countless martial skills blasted toward Chufengmian at the same time. They did not leave him any leeway and wanted to kill him directly. War dragon dances in the firmament. Chufengmian's eyes revealed a hint of a sneer. His body suddenly transformed into the appearance of an ancient war dragon. An incomparably huge war dragon claw was formed in an instant, and it slammed out with a palm. Thank you for Xiaofeng's reward. Chapter 439. In Chufengmian's body, 1,296 drops of ancient war dragon essence blood erupted at the same time. In an instant, his body transformed into the appearance of an ancient war dragon. There were some special blood scars on each of the scales. His surroundings were filled with boundless blood chi, making him look like a blood-soaked war dragon. Boom! As soon as the war dragon claw was unleashed, the countless martial skills were all shattered before the war dragon claw. The countless restrictions set up in the hall were also completely destroyed by the war dragon claw. Puff, puff. Su Jin and Su Wuqi were both sent flying by the power of the war dragon claw. They spat out mouthfuls of blood as their bodies smashed into the hall before coming to a stop. The majority of the war dragon claw's power had already struck the restrictions of the hall, yet the 2 of them were only seriously injured and vomiting blood. Otherwise, with Chufengmian's full power, a single war dragon claw would have been enough to completely kill the 2 of them. How could this person's power be so terrifying? Su Wuqi could not understand how Chufengmian's strength had reached such a terrifying level. He could naturally tell that Chufengmian had not concealed his cultivation level. There was no trace of the law of space on his body. He was indeed a wind-controlling realm cultivator. In fact, he was an ant that had not even stepped into the Saint realm. However, such an ant had actually neutralized all of his killing moves with a single move. Instead, he had seriously injured him and caused him to vomit blood. To be able to fight across 2 major realms, this was no longer something that could be described as a genius. This was simply not a human, but a monster. Blood sacrifice. Su Wuqi's eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. He suddenly opened his mouth and roared. Suddenly, countless screams were heard from the Su family. Chufengmian looked over and saw the countless disciples of the Su family screaming frantically. Then, their bodies all exploded. The boundless blood chi from the explosions frantically flew over and was completely devoured by Su Wuqi. What a ruthless method! He actually sacrificed countless clansmen to obtain power. Looking at Su Wuqi, Chufengmian's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Su Wuqi's methods were truly vicious. Countless disciples of the Su family had been implanted with the devil blood during their daily cultivation. Now, Su Wuqi's move directly released the demonic blood in the bodies of all the Su family's disciples, sacrificing all of them. He devoured the lives of all the disciples of the Su family to restore his power. Such a method could definitely be called vicious. Humph. A man of character is always unscrupulous in his actions. So what if the trash in the clan are dead? Su Wuqi looked at Chu Fengmian, his eyes filled with greed. Kid, you must have come across a great fortuitous encounter. After killing you and obtaining your fortuitous encounter, our Su family will be able to flourish once more. 12 blood gods. Come out. Su Wuqi roared as he condensed a large amount of blood qi. Countless figures appeared beside him. 12 blood gods appeared all of a sudden. Each blood god had the strength of first-layer life and death realm. Adding Su Wuqi's strength, he had already stepped into the life and death realm. In the blink of an eye, 13 life and death experts appeared on the scene. Kill. The moment the 12 blood gods appeared, they attacked one after another. These 12 blood gods came from the same origin. When they attacked at the same time, there was no gap between them. They were much more powerful than 12 life and death experts attacking at the same time. Even if you summon 12 blood gods, it's useless. These blood gods are formed from the purest blood qi. They can fuse with my ancient god of slaughter and increase my strength. Chu Fengmian took a large step forward and charged towards the 12 blood gods. He waved his hand, and the ancient god of slaughter behind him also erupted with blood qi, transforming into a large blood-red palm print. The palm directly smashed towards one of the blood gods. This blood god sensed Chu Fengmian's attack, and seemed to have sensed the danger. It also sent out a palm, facing Chu Fengmian. Bang! The palm of the blood god was immediately neutralized. At the same time, the remaining power of the palm smashed towards the blood god. Bang! In front of Chu Fengmian's incomparably great power, the blood god was directly blasted apart, turning into a cloud of blood mist, which was directly devoured by the ancient god of slaughter behind Chu Fengmian. Awesome! Chu Fengmian roared. The blood god was devoured, as if he had devoured the blood qi of an existence like the Su family's ancestor. Such pure blood qi was completely devoured by the ancient god of slaughter, causing Chu Fengmian's strength to rise little by little. This made him extremely excited. His gaze immediately fell on the remaining 11 blood god. As long as he devoured all 11 blood gods, Chu Fengmian's strength would be able to take another step forward. It would only be a matter of time before he broke through to the divine power realm. Seeing a blood god destroyed so easily by Chu Fengmian, Su Wuqi's face turned incomparably stiff. He had sacrificed countless disciples of the Su family in order to obtain these 12 blood gods. If these 12 blood gods were no match for Chu Fengmian, he would be finished. Array. Attack together. Blood Fiend Buddha annihilating array. Su Wuqi shouted as he stood next to the 11 blood divinities. One of the blood gods had already been killed by Chu Fengmian, so Su Wuqi took its place. With the power of 12 life and death experts, he formed the unparalleled god of slaughter. Blood essence spurted out from Su Wuqi's body, igniting the power within it. The 11 blood gods also ignited at the same time. Bursts of blood qi turned into hurricanes and formed an array. A powerful force immediately pressed down on Chu Fengmian. He's actually using the Blood Fiend Buddha annihilating array. Chu Fengmian looked at the array condensed in the sky and couldn't help but inwardly mutter. His eyes revealed some seriousness. This Blood Fiend Buddha annihilating array was a true killing move. It was the consummate skill of the ancient sect, Blood Fiend sect. If the 12 blood gods attacked at the same time, the might of this move was enough to kill a third-level life and death expert. The 11 blood gods furiously roared at the same time and ignited one after another. Their bodies suddenly exploded. All the blood qi began to condense in the sky, forming a huge river of blood qi. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's body was sucked into this river of blood qi. Thank you Idagawa Ryu for your tip. Chapter 440. The power of the river of blood was formed by the self-destruction of the 11 blood gods. Although it couldn't compare to the self-destruction of 11 life and death experts, The might of the Blood Qi River was still frightening. After all, the Su family was one of the great families of Xiando Nation. Now they had finally revealed their true strength. They sacrificed countless disciples to condense the Blood Qi River. Bang! Bang! Chu Fengmian's body was drawn into the Blood Qi River. Endless blood qi pounded against Chu Fengmian's body, producing banging sounds as if it was hitting metal. Behind Chu Fengmian, the primordial slaughter god shrouded his body, resisting the erosion of the endless blood qi. Brat, let's see how long you can resist. Su Wuqi looked at Chu Fengmian and coldly snorted. With a thought, he urged the power of the Blood Qi River to wash over Chu Fengmian. Inside the Blood Qi River, Chu Fengmian was enduring the erosion of the blood qi at every moment. The power of each erosion was enough to kill a pinnacle saint. The ancient god of slaughter behind him hissed under the countless scouring. Its body was completely locked in the long river of blood, unable to move. Chu Fengmian was a little surprised that Su Wuqi could erupt with such power. It seemed that if Chu Fengmian hadn't lured the Su family ancestor into the depths of the void, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have been a match for him if the Su family ancestor cooperated with the Blood Qi River. He might even have been trapped in the Blood Qi River, making it difficult for him to escape. A great family with 1,000 years of inheritance like this does have some tricks up its sleeve. I can't underestimate it. Chu Fengmian muttered in his heart. As he sensed the power of the Blood Qi River, the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Although the Blood Qi River was powerful, it wasn't without its weaknesses. The Blood Qi River should have been formed by the power of the 12 blood gods, but now it only contained the power of the 11 blood gods. One of the blood gods had already been subdued by Chu Fengmian. Although the power of one of the blood gods had been replaced by Su Wuqi was still a blood god. However, Su Wuxian was not a blood god. He could not completely sacrifice himself. He could only sacrifice a portion of his power. This gave Chu Fengmian an opportunity. You want to trap me with this tiny river of blood? Chu Fengmian let out a long cry. Sword Art of Massacre. The scarlet flame sword abruptly appeared in his hand and he slashed out. The sword slashed out and slashed at the river of blood qi. The tip of the sword accurately slashed at the deepest part of the river of blood. All of a sudden, the river of blood was scattered. The strand of sword qi struck the missing part of the river of blood, causing it to flow backwards and split apart immediately. Countless wisps of bloody aura split into 11 independent blood gods. Ah! Oh no! Su Wuqi cried out. When he saw this, his face turned extremely pale. One of the blood gods had just been killed by Chu Fengmian, so there was a loophole in the river of blood. It was a weakness. Now Chu Fengmian's sword strike just happened to hit that weak point. It immediately scattered the river of blood and turned it into 11 blood gods. Blood Fiend Buddha destroying array. Gather again. He hurriedly urged his power, wanting to combine the power of the 11 blood gods again. If the 11 blood gods were separated, they would be defeated by Chu Fengmian one by one. Only by joining forces could they contend against Chu Fengmian. Wishful thinking. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly. How could Chu Fengmian give Su Wuqi a second chance? He waved his hand and the battle dragon claw suddenly appeared. With a swipe of the claw, 3 of the blood gods were instantly shattered. They turned into extremely pure blood energy and merged with Chu Fengmian's body. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's body moved. The scarlet flame sword in his hand slashed out twice, completely killing the 2 blood gods in front of him. They were then devoured and refined by him. Of the 12 blood gods, 5 were killed in an instant. Including the one killed by Chu Fengmian earlier, there were now 6 blood gods dead. That was half of their number. Although the remaining 6 blood gods had already joined forces, they were no longer able to do much. Your Su family's patriarch has been killed by me. Now it's your turn. Chu Fengmian looked at the 6 blood gods, laughed, and rushed toward them. Against the combined power of the 12 blood gods, Chu Fengmian had to retreat a little, but there were only 6 of them left. Chu Fengmian did not care at all. He suddenly attacked, and the sword in his hand slashed out again. Bountiful lush sword art. Chu Fengmian moved the sword in his hand and slashed out. The 6 blood gods sensed the danger and attacked together, unleashing the ancient blood sacrifice to the common lives. However, the power of the 6 blood gods was not even half of what it was in their heyday. Although they attacked together, they were still forced back by Chu Fengmian's sword. Bang! Bang! 2 of the weaker blood gods were directly destroyed by this force. Another 2 blood gods were killed by Chu Fengmian. Little bastard! This old man will fight you to the death. 4 blood gods. Refine, burn, and explode. Su Wuqi looked at Chu Fengmian with a crazed expression. With a roar, he grabbed the 4 blood gods and slammed them toward Chu Fengmian. The spiritual energy in Su Wuqi's body and the 4 blood gods became chaotic at the same time, erupting with all their power. Self-destruction. Chu Fengmian snorted when he saw Su Wuqi's action. Su Wuqi, the patriarch of the Su family, was forced to self-destruct. The power of the 4 blood gods merged into his body at the same time, causing his body to swell incomparably. He looked like a ball. The moment he got close to Chu Fengmian, the ball suddenly exploded. Boom! Boundless power swept towards Chu Fengmian. If it were a life and death expert who self-destructed, I might be a little afraid. But you're just a peak saint who hasn't passed the Great Tribulation. Even if you self-destruct, you can't hurt me. Die for me. Chu Fengmian communicated with the sword embryo in his heart, and a force of fortune appeared in his palm. Fortune, battle dragon bloodline, and ancient killing god. The 3 forces gathered in Chu Fengmian's palm at the same time. Chapter 441. Break. Chu Fengmian struck out with his palm, and the incoming wave of spiritual power was instantly destroyed without a trace. Countless bursts of spiritual power disappeared without a trace under this palm. All that was left was a ball of pure blood qi, which Chu Fengmian swallowed with a wave of his hand. At this point, the 2 powerhouses of the Su family, Su Wuqi and the Su family ancestor, had both died at Chu Fengmian's hands. Young Master Chu, I beg you to spare my life. I was bewitched and threatened by my father. No, I was threatened by that old thief Su Wuqi. It has nothing to do with me. Su Jin immediately knelt on the ground and begged for mercy when she saw that Chu Fengmian had killed Su Wuqi. Now that the old thief Su Wuqi is dead, he deserved to die. However, I beg young Master Chu to spare my life. I am willing to submit to you. Su Jin knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly, begging for mercy. He seemed to be very sincere as he kept calling Su Wuqi the old thief. Su Wuqi didn't seem like his father at all. Instead, he seemed more like his enemy. Su Jin cursed loudly. Tuoba Ding and Han Yueli couldn't help but sneer when they saw this. Their eyes were full of disdain. For the sake of survival, this Su Jin was completely shameless. Are you begging for mercy? Chu Fengmian looked at Su Jin with interest. He had rarely seen a martialist with such a character in his previous life. That's right, young Master Chu. As long as you are willing to spare my life, I am willing to submit to you for eternity and serve you as your dog. Su Jin knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. She didn't look like a saint at all. A saint wouldn't beg for mercy even if they were about to die. Su Jin was willing to throw away her dignity in order to survive. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but reveal a look of disgust. You aren't even fit to be my dog. Chu Fengmian glanced at Su Jin, snorted coldly, and slammed his palm down. Chu Fengmian, you are ruthless. Feeling a surge of spiritual energy pressing down on her, threatening to tear her body apart, Su Jin's body trembled violently as she cursed loudly. You talk too much. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly and increased the strength of his palm. Su Jin's body shattered, and his soul was destroyed by Chu Fengmian. Even if such a person wanted to submit to Chu Fengmian, he wouldn't agree. Su Wuqi has quite a few empty rings on him. Chu Fengmian glanced over at the place where Su Wuqi had just perished. There were a few spatial rings floating there. With a wave of his hand, these empty rings all flew into Chu Fengmian's hands. These empty rings were filled with countless treasures and riches. They were all the wealth of their Su family. In one of the spatial rings, Chu Fengmian saw a few black wooden tablets. The appearance of this black wooden tablet was extremely similar to the Northern Mang sacred tablet in Chu Fengmian's hand. The power contained within it was also similar. This is... Chu Fengmian reached out and took out a black wooden tablet. He carefully observed it. The countless runes carved on the black wooden tablet were quite different from the Northern Mang sacred tablet, but they were much cruder. The strength of the person who had carved them was also quite different. This is the Northern Mang sacred tablet of the Northern Mang Academy, Tuoba Ding said when he saw the black wooden tablet in Chu Fengmian's hand. With this Northern Mang sacred tablet, you can participate in the Northern Mang Academy's examination. With this Northern Mang sacred tablet, I can participate in the Northern Mang Academy's examination? Chu Fengmian looked at the Northern Mang sacred tablet in his hand and nodded. He had come to the Su family for this Northern Mang sacred tablet, and now he had obtained it. Although he had wasted a few more days, it didn't matter. There were still a few more days before the Northern Mang Academy's examination, and it was enough. There are a total of 7 Northern Mang sacred tablets. 2 of them are for me, and the remaining 5 are not very useful. Chu Fengmian looked at the spatial rings and counted them. There were a total of 7 Northern Mang sacred tablets. He and Han Yueli needed 2 of them. Tuoba Ding was an inner disciple of the Northern Mang Academy, so he naturally didn't need them. Young master, don't worry. These 5 can be sold for a good price in the Northern Mang city. Tuoba Ding said with a smile at the side. It won't be a problem to sell each Northern Mang sacred tablet for 1,000,000,009 cauldron pills. All right. I'll give these Northern Mang sacred tablets to you. Chu Fengmian took out 2 of the Northern Mang sacred tablets and handed the rest to Tuoba Ding. Tuoba Ding had connections in the Northern Mang Academy, so he could sell them for a good price. Now that Chu Fengmian had planted the Heavenly Death seal on Tuoba Ding, he didn't have to worry about Tuoba Ding betraying him. There are still some materials here. You can sell them all. Chu Fengmian glanced at the spatial rings and took out a few items that were useful to him. He then handed the rest to Tuoba Ding. There were a lot of materials in this batch, and they were the entire Su family's accumulation. In total, there were hundreds of millions of 9 cauldron pills. Chu Fengmian didn't spend any wealth on this trip. Instead, he obtained countless saints' blood essence, demonic gods' blood essence, and a heavenly primordial spirit pill. It was a great harvest. Let's go. We'll go to the Northern Mang Academy first. Chu Fengmian restrained his aura and turned into a wind-controlling realm warrior. His strength was enough to fight against some weak Saint Realm warriors. With such strength, he wouldn't be seen clearly and wouldn't attract too much attention. If Chu Fengmian showed his full strength, those experts would have their eyes on Chu Fengmian. After all, the lower the realm, the stronger the strength. It also meant that there would be more fortuitous encounters. Chu Fengmian didn't want to be targeted every day, so he had to hide his strength. At the very least, he had to step into the Divine Power Gold Realm in the Northern Mang Academy to show his prowess. This time, Chu Fengmian didn't encounter much trouble along the way. The 3 of them went through the teleportation array and headed toward Northern Mang City. Northern Mang City was where the Northern Mang Academy was located. It was a huge city that was bigger than many countries. Another 3 days passed. Chu Fengmian and the others finally stepped into the last teleportation array. They came to an incomparably huge city. Northern Mang City, where the Northern Mang Academy was located. It was the biggest and most prosperous city in the entire northern region. They had finally arrived. From here onwards, we can be considered to have truly stepped into the 9 regions. Chu Fengmian thought to himself as he stepped out of the teleportation array and looked at the huge city in front of him. Thank you for Li Yuyu's reward. Chapter 442. The victorious martial nation and the Qin Empire were only small places. This Beimang city was the real bustling place of the 9 regions. This was the first time Chu Fengmian stepped into Beimang city. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian had been to all the major cities of the 9 regions. However, he was only a bystander at that time. Now that he had come to Beimang city, Chu Fengmian had a completely different feeling. He now had the strength and was no longer a bystander. In the future, he would rise from Beimang city. This Beimang Academy was his next target. Chu Fengmian wanted to rise from this Beimang Academy. Although this Beimang city is only a city that rose in 10,000 years, it's already extremely bustling. Chu Fengmian's group walked out of the teleportation array and looked at Beimang city. 10,000 years ago, this Beimang city was only a small remote city. However, it had now become the largest city in the northern region. The reason for all of this was the Beimang Academy. In the vast Beimang city, there was only one academy, and that was the Beimang Academy. Chu Fengmian looked around. There were countless young geniuses in northern Mang city at a glance. Wind-controlling realm, and even saints could be found everywhere. The victors who could be called kings in ordinary remote countries were nothing in Beimang city. Although they couldn't be said to be everywhere, one could still see a few at a glance. However, life and death realm experts were extremely rare. There weren't many who could truly step into the life and death realm from the divine power realm after all. Life and death realm experts could be considered to have some status in the Beimang Academy. What's going on with these people? Chu Fengmian looked around. Many young warriors were standing in front of an incomparably huge palace. They seemed to be queuing up for some unknown reason. Many of these young warriors had extremely high aptitudes and could be considered as geniuses. It seemed like they were all here to participate in the Beimang Academy's exam. Oh, these people are queuing up to register. 2 days later is the day of the exam, Tuobading said after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. However, young master doesn't need to queue up with these people. I've already found some connections. You can directly participate in the exam 2 days later. There's no need to verify your identity. Yes. Chu Fengmian nodded. Sparing Tuobading's life was indeed a bad thing. At least Tuobading had a local tyrant and Chu Fengmian would not have to waste a lot of time. Chu Fengmian pondered for a moment and asked, "Is there any place to buy and sell rare items in this Beimang city?" Right now, although Chu Fengmian's strength had reached a bottleneck, he still had to search for some wondrous items that were beneficial to him so that he could use them when he broke through to the Divine Force realm. With the help of the Tianyuan Spirit Pill, Chu Fengmian's breakthrough shouldn't be that difficult. However, it was better to be prepared in advance. It was safer to be prepared. There are indeed quite a number of places in this northern Mang city to purchase mysterious items. However, there aren't many that young master needs. Tuobading said after a slight hesitation. In this northern Mang city there's a black market. Every day there's a large amount of transactions. There are many things that are obtained by killing people and exchanging them. However, the origins of these things are unknown. Therefore, many precious items are sold at a low price. Young master, you can go and take a look. Maybe you can find something that you like. We can go and take a look. Chu Fengmian nodded and said. This black market was actually a place where fishes and dragons mixed together. There were countless rare items that were passed off as pearls. One might encounter a very good rare item, but one might also be cheated out of all one's belongings. Some people had good eyesight in the black market and were able to buy extremely good rare items, making a fortune in an instant. However, there were some that lost all their belongings. One had to rely on one's eyesight to survive. Chu Fengmian had read quite a number of ancient books in his previous life and was confident in his eyesight. He could go and try his luck. Let's go. Chu Fengmian moved without hesitation. Although Chu Fengmian and the others came from afar to this northern Mang city, with their strength, they wouldn't be tired even if they didn't sleep or rest for a year. Naturally, there was no need for them to waste time resting. Chu Fengmian and the others moved and headed towards the black market in this northern Mang city. The black market was located in an extremely hidden corner in northern Mang city. The roads along the way were complicated. If it wasn't for Tuobading, the local tyrant, it would be impossible for Chu Fengmian to find it. If you want to enter the black market, you have to pay 1,009 cauldron pills per person. When they arrived at the black market, a guard stopped Chu Fengmian and the others. Tuobading was very familiar with this place and had already prepared 3,009 cauldron pills. When Chu Fengmian and the others stepped into the black market, they could hear many hawking voices. There wasn't much order in this black market. Many of the people who set up the stalls were extremely powerful warriors. Chu Fengmian glanced at a few of them and knew that they were people who were used to killing. Their bodies must have been stained with a lot of blood. They killed people so that they could sell their wealth on the black market and exchange it for wealth. Chu Fengmian glanced around and stopped in front of one of the stalls. He pointed at a fist-sized inner core and said, "What kind of demonic beast's inner core is this?" Chu Fengmian looked at the inner core with a blank expression. Even with his experience, he couldn't tell what kind of demonic beast this inner core belonged to. This surprised Chu Fengmian. As an alchemy grandmaster in his previous life, he was very familiar with all kinds of inner cores. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't tell what this inner core was. It seemed familiar, but he didn't know the secret behind it. "You want to buy this inner core? Don't ask if you don't want to buy it." The stall owner was an old man at Divine Power Realm Level 5. When he heard Chu Fengmian's question, he couldn't help but snort coldly. "Don't waste my time." Tuobading was furious when he heard the old man's words. "You old man, my young master just asked you a question and you actually..." Although trading in the black market was voluntary, these words were a bit too much. Tuobading wanted to continue speaking but was interrupted by Chu Fengmian. "How much is this inner core? I'll buy it." "You want to buy it?" The old man was surprised when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He thought that Chu Fengmian was just here to ask about it casually, so he couldn't be bothered. However, when he heard Chu Fengmian's words, his eyes revealed a hint of greed. 100,009 cauldron pills. If you buy it, I'll tell you what kind of inner core it is. Thank you for Li Yuyu's reward. Chapter 443. The old man's eyes flickered when he saw Chu Fengmian's interest in the inner core. He immediately shouted out a sky-high price. 100 million? Why don't you just rob a bank? Tuobading couldn't help but say angrily. Although the inner core looked strange, it didn't have the aura of a demon god. At most, it was the inner core of a Imperial Wind Realm demonic beast. A few million 9 cauldron pills was already the limit. 100 million was simply a scam. What? Don't buy it if you can't afford it. This inner core is not ordinary. The old man snorted and said rudely. 100 million. Buy it if you can afford it. Leave if you can't. 100 million, is it? Okay. Hearing the old man's words, Chu Fengmian waved his hand casually. Chu Fengmian opened the empty ring. 100 million 9 cauldron pills suddenly appeared in his hand, and he threw it to the old man. At the same time, Chu Fengmian moved his hand and the inner core fell into his hand. Chu Fengmian played with it carefully. Hearing Chu Fengmian's straightforward words, the old man wanted to increase the price. However, seeing Chu Fengmian take out the inner core so quickly, he couldn't help but accept it. He had no choice but to accept the 100 million 9 cauldron pills. "Tell me, where did this inner core come from?" Chu Fengmian asked the old man as he observed the inner core. The power of this inner elixir seemed to be the inner elixir of a demonic beast at the peak of the wind-controlling realm, but Chu Fengmian could feel an unusual power in it. "This is actually the inner core of a lone bull. Hearing Chu Fengmian's question, the old man slowly said, "This is the inner core of a lone bull that had reached the peak of the wind-controlling realm that I encountered in a strange relic. I killed it." Lone bull. Hearing the old man's words, Chu Fengmian couldn't help but be surprised. He wasn't surprised by the rarity of the lone bull, but by the fact that it wasn't a rare demonic beast. It could even be said that the lone bull was one of the most common demonic beasts. It was at the bottom of the demonic beast. Ordinary lone bulls were at most at the peak of the bone-tempering realm. Only a small number of lone bulls could reach the body-tempering realm. And this old man actually said that he got the inner core from a single bull at the peak of the wind-controlling realm? The difficulty of cultivating to the imperial wind realm for lone ox was comparable to a trash without any spiritual veins cultivating to the saint realm. This was something that was almost impossible. "Old man, you're not talking nonsense, are you?" Tuobading frowned when he heard the old man's words. "This is Lone Bull's inner core? Humph, if you don't believe me, you can check the power of this inner core. It is indeed the power of Lone Ox." The old man snorted coldly as he spoke. His tone didn't sound very clear. "Indeed, I don't know why this solitary ox grew to such a powerful state. However, for it to mutate like this, it must have had some sort of fortuitous encounter. This Niden is also extraordinarily large. It is very likely that there is some sort of mysterious item within." "Oh? What did he swallow?" Hearing the old man's words, Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly lit up. He shrouded the Niden with his consciousness. In the deepest part of Lone Bull's inner core, there was indeed an extremely strange power hidden within. This power had always been hidden in the depths of Lone Bull's inner core. It was even shrouded by Lone Bull's power, which was why Chu Fengmian did not notice it at first. Now that he heard the old man's reminder, Chu Fengmian deliberately checked it. There was indeed a trick in Lone Bull's inner core. "This is the sky crystal?" Chu Fengmian's consciousness went deep into Lone Bull's inner core. Suddenly, his expression changed as he sensed an extremely pure spiritual energy within. This spiritual energy suddenly reminded Chu Fengmian of something. The sky crystal. The sky crystal was not a product of the 9 regions. It came from the extraterritorial region and was the condensation of the purest spiritual energy. No mysterious item in the 9 regions could compare to the sky crystal in terms of spiritual energy. The sky crystal was an item that all martial artists in the 9 regions dreamed of. A small piece of the sky crystal was enough to improve a martial artist's body and purify the impurities in their bloodline. For example, although Chu Fengmian's bloodline had the battle dragon technique, he had swallowed some elixirs, so there would definitely be some impurities in his body. The sky crystal's ability was to expel all these impurities. It was enough to allow a martial artist to obtain a perfect body. A fingernail-sized sky crystal was enough for an ordinary martial artist to purify their body once. This sky crystal came from the extraterritorial region and was not an item of the 9 regions. Therefore, it was extremely rare to see. Chu Fengmian did not expect to encounter a sky crystal. There was actually a small piece of the sky crystal fragment in Lone Bull's inner core. Although this small piece of the sky crystal fragment was only the size of a fingernail, its value was probably equivalent to the price of 1,000,000,009 cauldron elixir. Moreover, this sky crystal was an item that was priceless. It was impossible to buy it even if one wanted to. This is really a great bargain. Chu Fengmian was extremely excited. He had only heard of the sky crystal before. This was the first time he had seen it. Although he was excited in his heart, he still maintained a calm expression on his face so that others wouldn't be able to see Chu Fengmian's expression. A transaction of 100 million was considered a huge transaction in the black market. It attracted the attention of many people in the surrounding area. A figure had just walked into the black market. It was a young man. This person seemed to be about the same age as Chu Fengmian. He also seemed to be a young talent who came to participate in the Northern Sea Academy's assessment. His strength had reached the second level of the divine power realm. He could be considered as a genius with good aptitude. As soon as he entered, he saw the lone bull's inner core in Chu Fengmian's hand. His eyes could not help but light up. He immediately walked in front of Chu Fengmian and spoke. "Kid, sell this inner core to me. This is 200 million 9 cauldron elixir." As he spoke, the young man waved his hand and took out 200 million 9 cauldron elixir. He directly handed it over to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian raised his head and glanced at the young man, ignoring him. As for the 9 cauldron elixir that the young man handed over, he did not even take it. He completely ignored the young man. When the young man saw that Chu Fengmian was ignoring him, his face could not help but reveal a bit of anger. He directly stood in front of Chu Fengmian and shouted loudly, "Kid, this young master is talking to you. Can't you hear me?" Chu Fengmian glanced at the young man. His eyes revealed a bit of coldness as he spoke coldly. "Not selling. Thank you Ahu Chuan Long and Li Jiuyu for the reward." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.